7 o'clock, and we're going to have the work session on the Talleyrand Band Shell. Tom, can you do the introductions?
I would love to, thank you. As you know, we've been working on the Talleyrand Band Shell, and it's had a number of names, and I don't know if we've actually landed on the one we're going to use yet. Performing Arts Center at Talleyrand, the shell, the stage. But nonetheless, tonight we have 3 members of the committee, plus Melissa's here and myself, so there's 5 of us, and then obviously Don and Ralph have been helping us, but we have our 2 co-chairs, Rick Jacobs, who sort of looks like Tom Wilson except taller, and then Tom Bathgate is one of our co-chairs, and Ed Olson is been helping us out and has done a lot of the work that you'll see tonight. So there's a concept that we've come up with that we think is very workable, and we'd like to present that to you this evening and open for any questions that you might have. Yes, I would.
So if you go up to the podium, there's a mic there that will help with CNET.
One more thing, I'd like to also mention the couple other people on the committee. Michael Desmond from State College has been on the committee and very active with the group. Tally Fisher and Andrea Morrell have been active with this group as well. So that's it. Thomas?
Yeah, I just wanted to put we've been at this, kicking this around since June, looking at various band shells and performing arts centers, outdoor venues around the region. And to put it into perspective, we've come to the conclusion that we think we have the start of a concept, that the details on it can change very dramatically, but the idea of location, shape, how it fits into the environment and where it is are very important to us. We also want your blessing to start our silent phase of fundraising for the project. That silent phase will take 3 to 6 months. At the same time, we're trying to make this a Center County initiative so that we can tap pockets, if you would, from the State College and Bald Eagle area. With that in mind, I'd like to also say that with Melissa's help, we would like to review the project with other interested groups, such as the Talleyrand Park group and downtown Bellefonte, maybe even the cruise. So with that, I'm going to turn the show over to Ed, who's done a ton of work for us as a volunteer. And I really appreciate it, and I've sucked him into it, and I'm sorry, Ed.
Oh, good evening. Yeah, we started off looking at doing a little bandstand, and then we started discussing where it would be. We looked at this corner and we thought we need a larger, longer-term plan, because this is really one of the major entryways into Bellefonte. So we know that the borough had purchased the subway, and we felt that that probably would be best just torn down. So this area here is actually where the subway is presently sitting, and this is the HFL building with Center Boot Company right here. This is the railroad track, actually. So part of what we looked at was what were the things that we needed at this end of park. Possibly some kind of concession or visitor center, public restrooms, and a bandstand. Now, the idea of the bandstand keeps getting bigger because people are talking about possibly using it for a full symphony. So we're not sure the size of it, what it would be. Right now it's 50 feet by 40 feet. Public restrooms we've shown, which are occurring right in the center here, and this is a small building that could be used as a visiting center or concessions, or rented out to like the Lions Club to provide refreshments for an activity that's happening in the park. Part of what we looked at also was This street, as you all know, with all the entryways, is a little dangerous coming around the corner. So we thought about actually eliminating all the driveway here, moving this driveway a little, and actually expanding the parking lot here. This whole concept requires lowering the site a little bit at this side in order to get ADA access through the whole thing here. So that's basically the site plan that's happening. Okay, so this is a view if you were coming out of town, or yeah, coming out of town, heading up Benner Pike, with this being whatever our space wants to be. This is actually restrooms and dressing rooms for the bandstand, and we're not saying this is the defined shape of what the bandstand is. We've had all different kinds of ideas. Just seemed to fit in looking at the character of the match factor in HFL buildings and trying to retain some of the character of that whole end of the park. Let me see here. Okay, so this is actually what it would look like when you're coming into town. We're looking at putting some type of wall around the parking lot. We'd like to use stone, similar to the stone that's kind of used throughout the town, that's happening on the bases of most buildings, and brick. We would like to see a little more metal and more detail in some of the buildings, but for now we're just trying to define sort of the character to get everybody thinking about what we really need and what the borough needs and what our park needs. So here again is another site plan. You can see the scale of it. This plan of ours is laid on top of Weber Murphy Fox's original designs, and you can see where the trails and the walkways occur and how we would enter into this whole access one way here, one way out, to kind of control the traffic a little more. This is scale is interesting. This is a small building here. This is the restrooms, dressing rooms for the bandstand, and part of the bandstand would be covered, part of it would be open year-round. One of the things we were thinking about is considering whatever the shape of the bandstand turns out to be, we would like to have a roll-up door system so that during the winter and other times, with all the electronics we may end up within there, and speakers, other equipment, we can lock the building down itself. It would have access from the back side, and this is the back side of the restrooms, and this is actually where the railroad tracks happen. There's a couple nice big trees right in that area. Mm-hmm. So here's a little bit more of a side angle showing the entry into the first building, our entry into the restrooms and the back end, so that when we unload all of the musical instruments and other stage elements, we can actually come down. This is an ADA approved grade, so it's less than 5%. And same with going down to the actual park. So here's a front-on view of the bandstand, what I was talking about, the outward area that could actually be used by anybody while the park was not being used for a formal performance, if we close it off. Yes, Tom?
Can I just interject that we will have acoustic engineers working on the inside of this so that the
Yes.
So that the acoustics are projecting
Yeah.
projecting the sound outward. The the top of what we have there is pretty much sort of a cover over the shell, if you will. But this gray part here will be the working part of why we're building this.
I guess that begs the question, why wouldn't the building be shaped for the acoustics instead of the building being rectangular and then building the acoustics inside the vector, this
Because
space?
if you listen to the first part of the presentation, we're trying to Ed can answer that, trying to blend in with the architectural design of the surrounding buildings.
But the surrounding buildings weren't venues for amphitheaters.
No.
That's true.
They weren't, and I don't have an argument about that. We don't have any slides of the other dozen shells, shapes, and everything.
Mhm.
I mean, we have looked at all that. Tom's had some experience with dealing with acoustical people. I've had very little, and so we thought just in order to get people thinking about this, if that's what the community wants, is a real band shell, then I think that's what we need to really focus on.
I
But
think-
right now, we're trying to get you to buy into thinking about what we want to do at this end of the park and this entry into Bellefonte.
And I think one of the other reasons, John, is we thought it was important to have something that we could close up, and with that design, that allows us to bring doors down to lock that in.
I appreciate that, Tom, but that also makes an acoustic problem.
With the
Well,
doors
actually,
closed, yeah.
Not if you have a shell within a shell.
That's right, which means your shell has to get bigger to accommodate the acoustic shell.
Correct. And it would be less expensive to just put the acoustic shell in, which would appear approximately as a quarter of an eggshell. If you cut an egg in half
Yeah.
and you cut it into quarters and you set it down on there, that's effectively what it would look like.
Yeah, the Hollywood Bowl.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we do have that design.
Yeah, I mean, I understand we do have a historical thing, but at some point in time, you have to start being a slave to function as being part of the design process, not just horseshoeing yourself into.
Oh, I agree. I mean,
I know you do.
it could be, maybe the council and the community says, oh, we're tired of all these historical buildings. Why don't we do a nice contemporary building here? I don't have a problem with that, but this is a question you can now pose.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't have a problem with that. I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that's the excitement of this whole project, is that we can really get the community involved and so we're showing you kind of this first idea to define what we think at this moment is needed at the end of the park. Now, that building could be a different shape, it could be smaller, and it may need to be larger. And how we're going to get all that information together, I'm not sure. That's up to Tom. I just draw the pictures.
Well, we're planning on talking to the community about this,
Yeah.
other interested people.
Sure.
Mayor Wilson said something interesting. He said, well, people might wonder why we want a band shell when we have the gazebo. And the comment was that anybody who plays in the gazebo, and Tom's a musician, I'm a musician, knows that the sound goes everywhere but where you want it to go. So we want this to have the music going where it's supposed to go.
Well, the answer for the gazebo is watch an episode of Get Smart and you realize that you are in the cone of silence. And it is a complete definition, yes, I mean, that is simple acoustics.
But this is just a concept.
Rick, I know.
Yeah,
Rick,
okay.
If you guys talk, that's okay, we want you to, but CNET's telling us you can't be heard on CNET, so you have to walk to the podium where the speaker is, if you would, please.
Okay. All right, sorry, Ed, go ahead.
So let me kind of bounce off of what John just said. I think in terms of historic preservation, it's materials may be, the outside may be what you want to look at. The shape, I don't think, is particularly important for creating the band shell. It needs to be, as John said, acoustically correct. I don't think, and I think when you take this to Harb, they do take into account what is the use and how as it is, and since this would be a new building, how does it sensitively go into what that area looks like. And if band shell is eggshell shaped, as you said, but with materials that look similar to the area, I don't, personally, I don't think that's an issue.
Okay, I think that's the amount of photographs I had here of sketches. Now, do I just push that other button?
Yeah, just down at the bottom there, Ed. You should just be able to click on this one right here.
Ed, just before you do that, I do have one additional comment. And when you were showing that stonemason sign, just FYI, you need to take this into account when you're planning that. Over the last 2 years, the borough has been working on a wayfinding system that includes a stone mason welcome sign to Bellefonte right in that area. You may need to work with them to help make sure that you don't have them so close together that you can't see either one, depending on which direction you're coming.
Well, I
We've
think-
discussed that in our meetings, but I don't have a picture, I don't have access to any images of that to share with them. So
Okay.
if you or someone else can forward them to me, I can certainly, we've discussed that in length.
Yeah, I can get Nancy Perkins, who's got those pictures, to send them to you.
Yep.
Well, number one, I would also add that you're still a ways off, and we'll have the documents here within the next couple months, well in plenty of time that we can provide those when they get to that point.
I think it's a,
This is just concept.
yeah, I think it's a great idea, it's just, we need to make sure that
Yep.
we don't conflict with each other.
Yeah, that's in mind, and DBI is handling the fundraising, because they're a nonprofit and they can agilely take in money. They're going to be handling the fundraising part of it, the funnel for the money to go towards this committee. So they're well aware of what is going on here, and they will have a hand in future decision-making, so that's also not a problem. No, it won't slip through.
Melissa, talking about DBI, now,
Could we move on with the presentation, because we're only about halfway through this, and we're past our 15-minute mark to 7:00, so.
okay,
I'd like-
I
I'd see
thought I
more of the
said he was
presentation.
done.
Let's leave a little less
I'm sorry.
discussion right now.
Don, could you come up
Yeah.
and show me again what's going
Sure.
on? I think we have to coordinate with all the different groups, including the group that is working on the cover for the pond, that all these different groups that are working on things need to. Okay, this is a quick little animation that Weber Murphy Fox did, Theo. And as we get things more organized, we can probably expand on this.
It's kind of cool. It's a video game.
So anyway, that's where we are with our concepts at this time, and we welcome your input. And this is what we're trying to put together to go out and find potential. Yes, you want to donate money?
Are you anticipating that most parking is going to be over at the match factory and people will walk over?
No, we haven't considered that. I mean, we have in the wildest of imagination, but
Yeah.
we're concerned with it. Let me put it that way. We haven't solved it yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing added to the mix, Tom, and
Paul, that we're trying to realign Phoenix Avenue. And this would certainly give the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and us some more influence to try to move that project up. So when you talk about coordinating all the stakeholders, PennDOT would be a good person to be involved in that also. If you know, they're trying to realign the Phoenix Avenue where you come out from the match factory. There's some preliminary designs of how that might occur. It might go straight through the old Arco gas station, come out at the mill. We're asking to close Mill Street and create a bike path from what you've, the design you've come up with here. That could be a bicycling and walking path out to the new Axeman distillery. So there's a whole bunch of stakeholders that might be interested in attending your organizational meeting when that might happen. Just to let you know,
Look forward to that.
That's on the burner. That's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and the Bellefonte Authority, we're considering the new cover for the big spring, and we all want this to blend in together. So it looks like a great project.
Two questions. Melissa, you mentioned DBI. When we mention
John,
about,
can you speak up so
when
this-
we mention the electronics and the PA systems, the lighting and such, will that, who in the borough will be handling that and responsible for the upgrade, the purchase and then the upgrade and the maintenance of that within the building?
Well, we envisioned that as, excuse me.
That was a question that was asked by one of the bankers in town, and we envisioned that we would raise the funds as part of our fundraising project for all the initial equipment that would go into the operation. Now, there'd probably be some shows, as Tom and Michael have brought to our attention, that might need custom equipment. And we're not sure exactly who should be managing the organization once it's in place. Whether that should be somebody that reports to the borough as a consultant, as a company. And I suspect it might be because somebody's got to manage the contracts for all the musicians. And make sure that the equipment, the right equipment is in place. That's not a, I don't think the borough has a function yet built within its organization to do that. But we're looking at it from the standpoint of, in a perfect world, we'd like to raise a couple $100,000 more than what we need to build the place and put the equipment in it as an endowment for operations.
Okay. It's just that life cycle on that equipment is like 5 to 10 years.
Understood.
And then my second question is, I know that Douglas Meyer is leading the campaign to do a performing arts center in the old Lamont School with elementary schools, the last I heard. So when I heard about orchestra, that would be Nittany Valley Symphony and then Douglas Meyer's Central Pennsylvania Symphony. Has there been any discussion with those folks?
We met with them.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We met with them down at the park. They explained their program, or, what they're trying to accomplish and some of the things that they're looking at. They've also asked if we know of any spaces here in Bellefonte that could be repurposed and/or land that could be used. I've reached out to the county to talk with them about the repurposing of Center Crest, at least the newer part. I've talked with the borough about, our land out in, at the Armory, if there's any possibility of any land out there. Let me just say that they ask if, they said we would entertain the idea of also building this in Bellefonte if we could find the right space. So I told Douglas Myers that I would reach out to some of the entities that might, we've talked to Tom Songer as well about any land that might be available in the waterfront.
When I discussed with Roberta Struble,
I met with Roberta as well.
where I was trying to push her was the elementary school and the old auditorium in there.
Well, if you dig down a little bit deeper with them, they're looking for a stage that would rival the size of Eisenhower.
I understand that.
Yeah, and that's kind of hard to accomplish.
Yeah, I understand the desire for the size.
Yeah, I think any place in Bellefonte would be good for us. You know,
It would, but yeah.
I mean, chances are slim, but still, hey, we'll go for it if we can.
Yeah, I'm just, I would like to see what their plan is going forward as far as they are raising funds, but I've not seen a plan.
We offered, they understand that we'll probably have this completed before they have theirs, since they're shooting for a whole lot more money than we are, and their plan's a little grander. They don't even have a spot picked out yet. So we offered that if they wanted to do some fundraising events with the different entities, because we had a representative there from the Choral Society, the chamber music, and also the Nittany Valley Symphony.
Right.
And we offered this facility, once it's built, if they're still in the fundraising process, that they could use this to help
Right.
do that.
Right.
So we have 2 more minutes before we move on.
So my question would be, when you're considering the size of the buildings, whatever's gonna go there, is it being looked at as far as the footprint of where the people are gonna be? Because there's no sense making something like this when you only have a space like this where people are gonna be able to get together. And I'm just wondering what that's gonna look like and how we make that all work.
Get your exercise in here right now.
Yeah, there you go. Well, as a starting point, we visited the band shell at Hollidaysburg, which is a very nice laminated band shell. And they had the smallest footprint for where the people would be.
Yeah.
I think they can only get like 200 people in front of this grand band shell. And it's tucked in with all sorts of stone, when I say stones, I'm talking about stones the size of houses and plantings. And that, well, it is very poorly planned from the standpoint of location. We think that as a minimum, back to the first crosswalk, we're looking at maybe 500 easily grouped people for a show. If you want to go to 1,000, they'll be going further back towards the creek. I don't expect we'd have that many shows with 1,000.
Well, probably not, but I think our space is adequate for almost anything we put in there. I mean, this is 50 by 40 now, which is pretty good size. I mean, it may not look that, in the drawing, and these are all preliminary too. I want to point out to John, because we looked at like all the different designs, and
Right.
we've been to different states and looking at band shells. The nice ones were all built in the 30s out of concrete, the beautiful ones.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have any builders around that can do that anymore.
One of the nice things about looking at the older buildings is that they're relying more on, they prior to amplification. So it was more critical for them to have the acoustics of the structure correct, because they had limited power to generate the sound.
Yeah.
So,
Good point.
There's it's very worthy as far as the design exercise.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about our acoustic design because we're gonna be consulting with some experts on that, so, you know, through
And,
Penn
and
State.
it may well be that it may not be a fixed shell within a shell. It may be fins within a shell, operable. I remember I set up Mike Reed's senior dissertation at Penn State. And we had to set up for his piano concert. And it was all operable
Right.
in the music building there. And we have the opportunity to do that. That may be less expensive, maybe something that's more desirable for different types of concerts, whether it's piano, whether it's a symphony, whether it's string concert. There's
Right.
different ways to get it done. Talking a little bit about parking. We don't have the parking to put 500 people there, but we have drop-off capability. So with people with aged problems, broken limbs, something like that, we can drop them off and get them out of there. If you've ever been to that part of the park on an Easter egg hunt, I have, with my grandchildren, you know, you take grandma over, drop her off, and then you go down to the Gamble Mill, and then you walk. And it's a beautiful walk. That's what we have right now. If we had our way, we would like to have additional parking, and maybe even share parking with the Philatelic Society, and maybe even talk to some privateers across the street behind the convenience store.
We are at time, so we're gonna have to move on to
Okay.
the regular.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate your time, your effort, your work.
Haven't used this in a while.
Oh, you're still right on.
Good evening, everyone. The June 21st Bellefonte Borough Council meeting is called to order. We will have a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence before Don does the roll call.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call,
All
please.
right, Ms. Cleaton,
Here?
Mr. Brackbill,
Let me unmute. Here?
thank you, Randy. Ms. Abbott,
Here.
Mr. Eaton. Here. Ms. Samboski.
Present.
Mr. Johnson.
Present.
Mr. Prendergast.
Here.
Mr. Halderman is excused. Ms. Tosti Vasey.
I'm here.
Mayor Wilson.
President.
I need a motion for the approval of the minutes and a second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Eaton and Brackbill. Any changes? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. We need a motion for the consent agenda and a second.
I'll make the motion.
Cleaton
I'll second.
and Eaton. Any, so this is consent, so is there anything that needs to be pulled? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved. Okay, Greg, now we'll move on to the written communications.
Okay, in your packet, we had an email from Officer Jason Brower regarding lighting in Talleyrand Park. He was brought to our attention about the new pedestrian bridge along the railroad, how dark it is in the evening, and wanted council to take a look at seeing what we could do to get some light over there.
I'm going to refer this to Parks and Recreation for recommendation on the types of lighting, because there's apparently several ways we can go on this.
Okay.
The second item is, there is a letter from the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission. We received some good news in that in one of the grant applications that we applied for, we were awarded the grant for the improvements to to the train station. That would include a new rubber roof and painting completely of the outside of the train station.
So that letter came to me on June 2nd. I checked my inbox again today to see if I'd received the link to electronically sign the contract, because we can't sign these on paper anymore. It wasn't there, so I called the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission, and Karen Arnold called me back this afternoon. She said there has been a delay in getting the contracts out to the awardees for our signatures. They should be coming soon, and she notified us that we can start this project sometime after September 1st.
Great. Okay, also in your packet, there was an update from PennDOT regarding the Railroad Street Bridge Replacement Project. It's the status report number 1, primarily stating that they began the field survey phase of the project. We also placed in the packet a report that we can gather from E-Code 360. This is from our
Can we back
website.
up for just a second?
Sure, go ahead.
I looked over the project status, and I looked at the timetable. Bellefonte isn't listed on the timetable. I was wondering why not, since this bridge that we're talking about is located in the borough and not in Spring Township.
I thought it was down at the bottom.
Yeah, I did too.
Maybe it's just,
It was still supposed to start in May, the
It-
way I read it, but I can't remember.
but there were things that they were checking off above that listed what they were doing with each of the townships, and we weren't listed in those columns. That's,
Yeah, but I think if you look below that. we
Okay.
were. But look, I'm looking forward to your Joanne, I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. We'll keep looking
Okay.
here for a second.
so I mean, if that's a mistake, I'd like to have the borough added to it. That's all. Something we can deal with later.
I'll look forward here in a little bit when I get a break here.
Maybe we just don't count.
Let me see, E-Code 360, this is, this is a report on the number of searches by what your residents and other folks are looking at in regard to our ordinances. So it's just it's a informational piece that we put in the packet to provide you an idea of what people are searching and what they're interested in. There was a letter in the packet regarding downtown parking, or this was actually an email that came to Mayor Wilson regarding parking for businesses and their customers.
So on that, and Mary, you may be able to answer this. I believe that we told them that the remaining bag meter would go through until January 1st, and then would be removed. We initially discussed Labor Day. The question I have for council is, do we want to refer this back to the Streets Committee for further conversation?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we had first said Labor Day, and then I think we changed it to
The end of the year.
the end of the year.
Is that remaining one?
That remaining
One
one?
bag, one bag.
One bag.
Okay. Yep, all right. Yeah, I think part of his request, if I remember correctly, we had a phone conversation too, I believe, was the question that we get asked every once in a while, you know, can people purchase those spots? And I said that there are permits for particular spots, but not the metered spots. So I basically said no, but I said I'll check into it. So that's where we are with that.
Okay, I found it.
Okay. Last, there was a letter from the solicitor for Benner Township. It's just a letter stating for a re-review of the Benner Township zoning changes because they came back and made some additional changes.
So do we refer this to the planning committee for them to look this
I
over?
think our planning looked at it once already, but yes, it should go back for a
Okay.
second.
So send it back to the planning commission then.
That's all I have under written communications.
Does any council member have any written communications they want to present? Okay, in that case, I'll move on to oral. Is there any comments from the public? Okay, then we'll move on to Mr. Wilson for his mayoral report.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. In your packet, I think this was an add-on that came later from Melissa. It's the police report and the parking and animal enforcement report. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. I have copies of it here if anybody has any questions about it. I thought there were some nice examples, once again, of some of the work that the police have done. I did get a report from the chief earlier today that the crews went off pretty well without any major incidents. And I thought if anybody was in town, you probably noticed there was a pretty good turnout. And unfortunately, I think it came to a close a little sooner than they had liked, because when the rain came in, people started to disperse. But all in all, I think we had a pretty good weekend in town. We had the tasting trail, our sponsored event in the park, and because of the unknown COVID restrictions, they broke it into 2 events, basically. They had a noon to 3 people were allowed in, and they had a second group come in from 4 to 7, I believe. And then I think the Lindy sisters played in the park Sunday night, and I missed that, so I don't know if anybody was there, if there was a good turnout. Good turnout, Michael?
Yeah.
Good. A couple other items. Earlier today, HVAB, which is Happy Valley Adventure Bureau, held the announcement of the county grant funding at the train station, which was nice of them to come to Bellefonte and do it there. And there was a very large turnout of people who had applied for grants. And Bellefonte, our borough, received $70,000 in grant monies to 4 different entities, being the Bellefonte Art Museum received $10,000. Center County Library and Historic Museum received 10. Downtown Bellefonte, Under the Lights, Friday in the Font received 10. And Historic Bellefonte Incorporated with the cruise, Arts and Crafts Fair, Victorian Christmas received 40. And of that, I guess I'll just bring this up now. After the Arts Festival that was scheduled for August 6th and 7th was scrubbed, Phil and Kathy Breidenbaugh and I got together and talked about possibly salvaging something for that weekend. So we're going to do a performing arts concerts.
I can't stop it. It's been
Who's
doing that
tinkling?
it's been doing that all day.
That's all right, we'll make it part of our world. Anyhow, so on the 6th and 7th of August, I'm going to ask permission if someone will make a motion to approve or disapprove, or at least talk about it, to have a band stage in the park, possibly where the shell will end up, and do, like, I'm thinking of 2 bands on Friday night and about 7 bands all day Saturday, with food trucks, and we may have some spirits there, so we'll have to work out the details for that, but that's been done in the park before. We can get all that, but I would like at least you guys to talk about it and maybe give a conditional approval so I can move forward and start booking the music.
Melissa, before we have a motion, what do you think about having them, we can do a conditional approval and send it to Parks so that you all can get the details put together, so we don't have to do that here this evening?
Yeah, I have a meeting set up for Thursday of this week with Breidenbaugh's, and we're gonna work out some of the details, so once we get the details, we'll come back to get final approval, if you will.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good.
So we need a
I think
motion.
it sounds
for
like a hell of a
condition.
plan. I'll make the motion to proceed.
Well, we're gonna have something. If we don't have a full arts festival, at least we'll have the performing arts part of it.
Second, Johnson.
Arts concert. August 7th, 6th and 7th?
Yes.
August.
A few hours on Friday night and then pretty much
Yeah.
all day Saturday.
So that won't conflict with the concerts in the park, which is on the
No,
8th.
that's Sunday.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was Prendergast and
Johnson.
Johnson. Discussion?
Great idea.
Thank you.
Why haven't you got it done yet?
I had to wait to see if I had any money to work with.
Okay. So, if we don't see any discussion, so we'll move to a vote on the conditional approval with final decision to be made by the Parks and Rec Committee. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So moved.
Okay, thank you very much, and if there's anybody that wants to help out with this endeavor, please let me know. Probably use a few hands. Right now, we have 3 people on the committee. We'll get her done, but Chief, do you have anything that you would like to present to council at this time? Council, anything you'd like to present to the chief at this time?
Great job for the cruise patrol.
Good event. It was got a lot of positive comments and feedback from the town.
How many police officers were involved?
Excuse me?
Oh, the surrounding?
22.
22 police
Sorry,
officers.
But that includes 4 plainclothes officers.
Nice. Well, good job. All right, that concludes my report, Madam
So
Chairman.
just real quickly, I wanted to back off on yours. I, at the the tasting trail yesterday, I also signed up for the beer cave tour that is in Benner Township.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You all have a wonderful tourist thing out there. It was the first time it has been open to the public. It was fantastic. Anybody is interested, they would need to contact Camp Breezy to get in, because they don't yet have public hours. I did mention the beer cave today to the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission, and they were very interested in it. So you all may want to contact them to talk about some of the historic preservation parts for that. It was a wonderful 30-minute tour.
Yeah, we're in contact with Jim Lanning. Sorry. We're in contact with Jim Lanning all the time, and he's a great spokesman for the township or whatever. He's on a few of our committees and stuff, and does a great job. And that beer cave is awesome. He's done a lot to restore the house and the beer cave and everything else. So it's worthwhile seeing.
Thank you. Good. Check that out there. Thank you.
Well, this is from someone who doesn't drink beer.
But still.
Yes. Okay, so moving on to my report. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody back. We are getting closer to the end of this pandemic, and most everything has now reopened. Yet we are still not yet at what is known as herd immunity. So, everyone in the public, if you're not fully vaccinated or live with others who are not fully vaccinated, please wear a mask or practice social distancing when you're with others so that we can safely weather the end of this troubling time. Really appreciate everything that everyone has done over the last year and a half to get us to this point. Let's just make it to the end line. I have 2 reports this evening. One is on the waterfront development project. Last week on June 14th, Don Holderman, Tom Wilson, and I met with the Waterfront Development Group, basically Tom Songer and Ed Olson. In your packet is the information that they gave us at that meeting. They are still working on movement forward with the project, starting as they had originally planned with the garage and hotel with some redesigns to both buildings. The major revisions will be done with the garage. They're still working on this redesign, and meantime, they are planning on sending out requests for new bids. They're hoping to break ground next spring. Any questions on that?
Any dates mentioned?
No. We asked, and that was the best they could give, is next spring.
Close enough for government work.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to my second, last week on Tuesday, I attended the Pennsylvania Municipal League Sustainability Conference. They had it was a 6-hour meeting. There were some very excellent presentations. One of the presentations dealt with community resilience, and that will be discussed with the Environment and Sustainability Committee on June 30th at our next meeting. There was another session that dealt with the PA Solar Center. This is a nonprofit agency that can assist the borough for free to provide us with any additional guidance we might need following up on our solar energy report that we just received from Wilson Engineering. There was also some discussion in this session about suggested changes to our local zoning ordinance that I'll get in contact with Gina regarding ground level installed solar panels, that there's been some issues in some other communities regarding permeable surfaces and how that works out. So we need to check our zoning to see if it fits or not. And they also suggested that communities work towards what's called a SOL Mark certification that reduces the soft costs of solar installation. This is the labor and the legal costs, not the actual equipment. If we as the borough are interested in this program, PML is putting on a webinar on July 13th at 1 p.m. that we can sign up for. The final session announced a revamp of the PA Sustainability Certification Program. It's opening up in August to the beta testing communities that include Reading, Carnegie Borough, and Bellefonte. The certification levels previously have been permanent. They're now moving them to effective for 3 years after achieving a specific level, whether it's bronze, gold, silver, or platinum. And then every time you move up, that clock restarts again. So we can discuss that a little bit in the Environment Sustainability Committee and see how we will be working with them going forward starting in August. And that's my report. Any questions?
Very good.
Okay, moving on to building and property.
I was going to stand in for Buddy tonight. So during our building and property meeting, we discussed the request about relocating recycling containers from the west lot. I think we had a pretty good discussion on some other possible locations, but at this time, based on the support that and how busy those containers can be, we decided that at this point we have no recommendations for relocation at this time.
Any questions?
I'd like to just follow up one thing on building and property, and I should have mentioned it at the last meeting, but if I could, I'd like to take a minute and thank Rodney Mitchell, Tom Dan, Joe Mena, and Scott Lucas of our parks crew. They've been mowing Union Cemetery this whole year because of the lack of volunteers, and I failed to mention what a fantastic job they did around Memorial Day. They had the cemetery looking really exceptional, and they've been doing that in addition to all of the mowing of all the different parks. So I just wanted to give them kudos for all their efforts.
And I would like to add one additional item regarding Union Cemetery. If you've all driven by there recently, you will notice that all of the roadways within the cemetery have been paid.
Yeah.
That was done by a donation from a couple who do not want their names mentioned. But they provided the donation through the Bellefonte Historic Preservation Foundation, who then oversaw the funds for the paving of Union Cemetery.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, I was up there I didn't drive by, I walked on it.
So that just happened in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Finally, Joanne, before I forget, on that, going back to that PennDOT report, you have to go back a couple pages, but the Railroad Street Bellefonte is on there, and the end of it is July 2022, it looks like, so just for everybody that didn't see that.
Great, thank you. Anything else for building and property? Seeing none, moving on to finance and government performance. Deb?
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the update on the American Rescue Plan, and I'd like to ask either Dawn or Joanne to do the update on that.
I can, we did submit the DCD application last week for that, so for Bellefonte Borough, the first year, and we should be receiving the funds by the end of the month. It should be approximately $326,000, I believe. And then there's another additional $326,000 for next year. What we ended up submitting it for, even, we didn't have to break it down, but most of the funds will go towards water and sewer projects, with about $75,000 held back for updates and renovations to speaker systems and everything in this room, so that we can operate both hybrid meetings and do those types of things. So
And
that's
improve the safety of this room.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
The second item is a motion to approve the purchase of a new, or the lease of a new police vehicle. This would be a new Ford Explorer, appropriately equipped for use as a patrol vehicle. The initial lease would be a 4-year lease at $11,000 for the year, and that's already in the existing budget for 2021. The estimated useful life would be 8 to 9 years, so it'd be a 4-year lease and then another 4 years. And there's no anticipated replacement for other vehicles, at least 3 years for another patrol vehicle, or about 10 years for the chief's vehicle.
Do I have are you making that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Clayton?
I'll second.
Okay, Clayton and Prendergast. Any discussion?
I have a question. At the end of the 4-year lease, is there a balance due?
No,
No?
No.
no.
No. And the other thing is that we're still working on the enterprise contract plan that we looked at all of our vehicles in the Bureau. What the committee decided to do is go ahead and recommend approval of this vehicle. And then, once we know whether we're going to go ahead with the leasing plan with enterprise enterprise fleet management, then if we do that, then this vehicle would have been the first one on for the enterprise. That will go down to the bottom of the list. And we will work with them so that over time we will save a lot of cost for the future. And may or may not.
No, I don't want to hear it. We're gonna be forced to buy them anyhow. The automakers are gonna stop making fuel.
Well, it was
Lisa,
it was a very interesting conversation, because what the determinant was, we don't drive enough to charge the batteries to make the hybrid model, which is now the standard Ford Enforcer, viable for us.
Right.
I
I
just
will-
wanna know when you're gonna pay your fair share of road taxes.
He's saving up.
According to that inflation model that Borough Water Authority gave us,
Yeah.
we are using the cost-effective alternative for our transportation fuel. So we are abiding by the cost inflation model that was recommended to us by the Bellefonte Water Authority, and substituting the most cost-effective transportion fuel.
Well, okay, whatever you say.
Write that down.
I'm not talking
Okay,
about
this
the
is
borough.
off topic
I'm
at this
talking about
point.
individuals.
I
We
understand.
deal with a motion,
Individuals,
we have a
John.
motion on the floor.
So, yes, this is off topic.
We knew this was,
Well,
we
you-
joked about
I'm
this the whole
afraid
way
it's-
through the meeting.
And you can get free service at any borough parking lot. No fee to charge
Okay,
the vehicle.
so is there any discussion specifically on the police vehicle? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Chief Weaver, you got your vehicle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Someday.
Gasoline or what?
Don't get Councilman Johnson riled up.
It's a wind-up, you have to.
It's got a crank on the front.
Okay. Anything else for,
Yes, we did discuss replacement body cameras. I would like to revisit that at the next finance meeting,
okay.
which will be July 13th at 10 o'clock, just to nail down the funding sources for that.
Okay.
This for police?
July
Yes.
15th.
July 13th is the second Tuesday at 10.
I thought that we already approved that.
Well, half of the budget for that is already, half of the amount needed is already in the budget, and then there was some discussion about moving funds around from other
That hasn't happened yet.
line items, and I just
Okay,
wanted to be sure
My
about that.
recollection was we told Jason to proceed because they absolutely were necessary.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah. As long as the funding for it can be
They
guaranteed.
were going to work that out within the
Right, I
department.
was just curious about which
That part-
line items they were going
Maybe
to.
Yeah, that part-
Sean can answer that question. You'll have to come up.
This was to replace our existing body cameras with brand new ones. They'll be replaced every 4 years. And it was gonna be an additional $7,000. Off the top of my head, I think it was 7,000. So we were gonna, Jason and Lori were gonna sit down, and with Dawn, we were gonna work out a way to move some things around in the budget closer towards the end of the year. If we don't have as much vehicle maintenance, which we normally give money back in vehicle maintenance, or we can shave some here and shave there. I don't have a definitive answer for you, but it's a necessary thing that we need to do,
Right.
and we'll get it done.
And this would also increase the storage capability?
Yes, double the
Double it.
storage.
Okay.
So do you want to do a motion, or do you want to hold off?
If
I think all she was asking for is to be put on the next committee. I mean, you could still do that if you'd like to put it on
Put it on,
agenda
put
and
it
find out
on
where
the
we
agenda
are.
for the next finance.
Sure, we can
meeting.
do that.
Well,
Okay.
just discuss where the funding will come from, but
Right.
Officer Brower, you guys can go ahead with the purchase.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we need to make a motion for them to proceed, or is that a done deal?
I think we do.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion for the police department to upgrade their body cameras. I believe it's 11
Yes,
cameras?
yes, ma'am.
11 cameras with double the storage capacity, with potential, approximate cost of $7,260.
With final decision of where the money's coming from after this.
I'll second it.
Clayton and Prendergast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Discussion?
How old are the current body cams?
A year.
A year. They're a year
That's what I
old.
thought. I just-
We're experienced.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they're a year old.
They're.
3 of them burn up.
You might want to stay there for a few
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah.
So in the meeting, Officer Brower came in and he pointed out to us that these first cameras that we got were defective. And there was this whole back and forth with the company. They repaired one, couldn't repair the other two. And then there was a delay in getting back to us. So as a apology, they have offered us all 11 cameras at a discount for 4 years and doubling the storage for this amount. So this is actually much cheaper than what we would have gotten it for otherwise.
And they'll be, all 11 will fully be replaced in 4 years. Again.
And these will be fully guaranteed for 4 years.
So we'll replace them at the end of 4 years. They're gonna take these away and give us the new technology. So basically, technology, I don't wanna, talk down on the company, but their technology was towards the end of its life when we bought them. So technology upgraded, they saw a flaw, why they burn up, and they fixed that flaw. And
But we got burned in the middle.
we got kind of in the middle, but they're battery operated, not gasoline or electric.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my recollection at that meeting was that, that we are required to, the storage of, what we have to store is required by state law,
There are, yeah, right to know law is intertwined in there
Yeah,
also.
and certain categories have different
Certain categories of
stories.
crime
And then
have to
that's
be
the
held for a
most,
certain amount of years.
that's the most expensive part of the whole body camera thing.
We
is
are
the
almost
storage.
at the end of our storage.
Mhm. All right, so that's a legislative problem.
My feeling on the subject was the cost was going to be maybe $4,000 more than what we had in the budget this year. But for the fact that we're getting the new technology, we would have spent $4,000 talking to our legal counsel as to what our increased risk liability would be
Yeah, that's right,
if we
John.
would not have the cameras, so.
They're here to stay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'd go with it.
Okay, let's move on.
So, any other comments or questions?
I just have one question, and that's, what's our comfort level with the general budget revenues coming in at this point?
Lori, at the last finance meeting, she said we're at 91% of the funds for real estate at this point, so she feels really good. That's better than where we were last year at the same time.
Yeah, according to the budget numbers in
Things
the
look good.
consent agenda, we were actually ahead
Of last
on
year.
income tax. So we're sort of tracking the state trends where revenue for sales taxes is coming in higher.
And I would just, be remiss if I didn't remind council that you all were very conservative in this year's budget when you planned it last year, which was a good thing. So if things come in on a normal year, we're going to be way ahead of the game.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions on this? If not, we'll move to a vote on the body cameras with the moving around to be done subsequently in the Finance Committee. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved.
And that's the end of my report.
Anybody else for Finance? Seeing none, we'll move on to Parks and Rec. Melissa?
The Park and Rec Committee has established a standing meeting time as the Thursday after our council meetings. If there is nothing on the agenda, they will be canceled. I will put forth a motion to approve Summer Sounds 2021. That schedule was in your packet.
A second.
Boski and Brackbill.
Yeah.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. So this is for the public, goes through August 8th, every Sunday, starting at 7 p.m.
Yes. In our last meeting, the Bellefonte High School Orchestra, did we discuss it in our last meeting?
No, we just referred it.
Was the letter in our last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, the letter was in our last meeting for the Bellefonte High School Orchestra. They have changed their time to better align with Summer Sounds. That is July 11th, 2021 at 4 or 5.
It's 5.
At 5 o'clock.
Yep.
And that will also be in the band shell, but they're confident that they can move out by the time that Summer Sounds begins. So I'd like to make an emotion to approve that event.
I'll second it.
I heard Johnson. Oh. Give you a chance this evening. Boski and Johnson. Any discussion? So just FYI for the pub, this is the first time that the orchestra has been put together as summer camp, and the students themselves chose this particular week. And so, and the reason there was some lack of knowledge was that when he came, he didn't know that we were going to request that he move the time. But apparently that worked out well. And we're hoping that maybe the two groups can work together to maybe get an ice cream truck or something else like that to move ahead.
Bridge the gap.
To bridge the gap between the two. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved. Anything else?
I do not have a letter for it, but the Under the Lights Committee would like to add an additional date to Under the Lights 2021 of Saturday, September 4th. So it would be Friday and Saturday, 3 and 4.
Friday and Saturday. So you're making a motion for Bellefonte Under the Lights for both days?
For both dates, and I can have a letter submitted. It can definitely go to Parks. This could be a conditional approval. And it can go to Parks, and then we'll have a final approval.
I think we can conditionally approve it tonight if you would like to.
That would be great.
I'd make that motion to conditionally approve the 9-4 addition to Under the Lights.
I'll second.
Second,
Brackville.
Johnson and Brackville.
So it's gonna be a 2-day event,
Two-night event.
2-night event.
What's the the day of the second night again?
The 3rd and the 4th.
Starting at what time and ending at what time?
I think the committee would want the same closure times of noon to midnight, and the event would be around 4:30 or 5:30 to 8:30.
The event.
And they would open up Lamb Street after the first night, the Lamb
Yep.
Street Bridge, and then close it back up.
Yep.
Street closure, okay. So let me make sure I've got the motion. It's to approve both the 3rd and the 4th conditionally from noon to midnight on both nights, with the event actually occurring between 4:30 and 8:30, with Lamb Street closed out, except
Lamb
during
Street-
those hours, and then reopen in the middle.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? So moved.
Thank you all. I have nothing further.
Yes.
I have a question. A family member approached me from the Kraus family and wondered if they did a walkthrough of the park, of the Kraus Park, and it seems to be not as nice as it was before. Is there, we formed a little task force 2
Yeah,
years
work
ago.
committee.
I'm happy to do that, but maybe borough staff could do some touch-up in there, if time permits, Dawn. Or, I will turn it over to you, but what
Yeah.
you suggest, Melissa.
We can take that to the committee.
Okay, so we'll refer that to Parks and Rec.
Thank you.
Do you think you might want to attend the meeting?
Maybe one of the members of the Kraus family would, I can ask, or
Yeah, so the next meeting will be this Thursday.
this Thursday, at what time?
Melissa?
11 a.m.
I'll ask Jeff or Patty if they approached me yesterday.
Okay.
If they would, at noon, or?
It's 11 a.m.
11.
And it's by Zoom.
I'll go with the recommendation. I'm
It's
happy to
by
be
Zoom, so
there
we just need to send
with,
you an
on
email.
Thursday at 11.
Before you leave the meeting.
You won't be there. You'll be out of town.
I don't know if I have their email address.
Who?
Do you have their email
Patty?
address?
I can get it.
Okay. If you send it to me, I can forward on the Zoom,
Absolutely.
because
I
he's
can
not
do
going
it.
to be here to do
I
that.
will send the Zoom out if you can just forward it.
To you?
I'll forward the Zoom tonight to you if you can forward it on to the.
All to, for the meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
And,
Okay.
anything else from anybody? Okay, then moving on to Human Resources, John?
Okay, Human Resources Committee met on June 16th, and we've been working on updating our employee handbook policies. And in front of us, we have a proposed amendment to our ethics requirement for the employee handbook. And this has been reviewed by legal counsel. And what we would like to add the paragraph, at any time when there is an employment vacancy within the borough current and former borough council members shall be excluded from the opportunity to apply for such vacancy. Current and former borough council members, only after having a minimum of 1 year being removed from serving on borough council, may be eligible to apply for a borough employment vacancy. This only applies to paid full and part-time positions within the borough. So I'm making a motion for amending our employees' ethics handbook, or ethics requirement, to reflect this change. And basically, it is to address.
Wait a minute, let someone second it, then you can tell.
Okay.
I'll second, Brockville.
Okay.
And the purpose of this is to avoid any revolving door issues, where we would have elected officials approving a job opening and then becoming a candidate for that job opening. So,
Any discussion?
I'm sure there could be, but
I'm voting no.
So seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
One no. Johnson.
okay. And that, okay. Can we move on to the next one? Okay. And at that very same meeting, our current anti-discrimination ordinance and harassment policies have also been sent to our solicitor for review and comment. We will, depending on that input, we will modify, or we will review those policies as necessary and bring them before council at subsequent meetings. Dawn, I'm going to turn over the announcement of the...
Before we move on, because I had some additional information from this afternoon on the anti-discrimination ordinance.
Okay.
I was at the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau meeting this morning. Dave Probolko, who's the Ferguson Township manager, was there to accept the grant that is Miles Milheim to Ferguson Township events over the summer.
Okay.
And while we were there, he told me he's in the process of setting up another meeting between the managers and designated council members sometime in the next month to determine where each of the communities are, so that we're all basically moving along or on a similar pace and know where we need to do and get a better idea of what's going on. The other communities have also sent the ordinance to their solicitor. One of them, which is the same solicitor we're using.
Okay. Okay. So, with that, then Dawn, would you please introduce the two new refuse personnel?
Yeah, at last meeting I mentioned, we had hired Brian Martin and Sam Horner started today, both in refuse. Brian started about 3 weeks ago. Sam's first day was today. And then we had one of our refuse personnel transferred down to the wastewater treatment plant because he bid on a job. But we are completely full in refuse. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, we are at a complete full staff right now.
34 employees strong. So, and that's the end of my report.
Anybody else have anything for human resources? Seeing none, we'll move on to safety. Randy?
Okay, at the table tonight, you have the Center Region Code statistics. So they didn't make the packet, but they're here.
They were at your desk, I'm sorry. They're at your
on the
desk tonight.
table. There's a note here about CEDA COG safety report. I'm not sure, I didn't see anything in the packet on that.
I'm not sure what that is, Randy, I apologize.
CEDA. Okay, we'll go past that then.
So next time.
Safety Committee report, we have some complaints about dog issues. I'll call them parent issues, people possibly not cleaning up after their dogs, and we had lengthy discussion on how to combat this and make sure people are cleaning up after their dogs walking through the parks. You know, that was something that we passed a few years ago, and it just seemed to make sense because it's a natural, you know, with the waterfront and everything starting to open up, or opening up at that point, people didn't need to walk along Water Street to walk their dogs. They could go through the park. And it's all been working fine. But people need to clean up after their dogs. So the signage is going to be going up that isn't there now, but I think it used to be there. And it's just basically going to say fines up to $600. And I think Chief Weaver may have been approached about having the parking meter folks kind of do a tour through the park system while they're on duty. And hopefully that'll aid in keeping people alert to keep an eye on their dog. The other issue we talked about were what I have listed as a turkey vulture. They're listed as something else through the USDA. They sent us an email back that Dawn sent them a request about handling this type of bird, and they are willing to come in and give us some ideas of what we can do, or possibly remove them themselves. So we'll see where that goes.
In addition to that, we did receive also from Ehrlich, which we were asked to look into. They also have a plan that you can purchase. In fact, I'm under the understanding that they assisted the county with the problem last year. So and then I talked to the Game Commission. I didn't get a hold of them. That's the only place that I couldn't get a hold of. So the next committee.
Yeah, can we set up another committee meeting?
Yeah.
Have them both there possibly. And that would be my next thing, is that we have not established a standing committee time for safety yet. To my knowledge, I didn't see anything that came through.
Alyssa told me today there's 2 committees, I think, that we don't have standing committees for, and yours, the safety is one, and there's
We do as
water.
needed. Well, that's what I wrote to her, an as needed schedule.
That's good. I would look at doing that, but I would think I'd rather have it scheduled, and then if the time frees up, then we get the time back anyway, you know, so. It seems to be the way we're going.
Yeah, I'm just talking about water centers.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's see, what else do I have on? We have a Bellefonte Fire Department Exec Committee this Thursday. That's at 7 p.m. over at Lambert Hall. We may revisit with the borough, Dawn, as far as starting having the meetings here. If you guys could talk about that management-wise.
That shouldn't be a problem.
I don't think we'll change this week. I'll talk to Gary. I haven't talked to him for a while. I think that's all I have at this point.
Okay. Any questions on safety? Okay. Moving right along, Doug, water and sanitation?
I really don't have anything to report, except that the next scheduled authority meeting is July 6th at 6 p.m. in this room.
Isn't that our council meeting, because the day before is a holiday?
The next council meeting in here would be the day, yeah, it would be Tuesday, so I think the authority would be Wednesday.
Okay.
So yours will be the 7th.
Okay. And then when Ralph gets back, he's gonna work, I think, with the authority, Doug, to see if there would be a joint meeting in August between council and the authority.
Perfect.
A work session.
That will be August 2nd.
Perfect.
Anything else for water and sanitation?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Moving on, streets, Mary?
The Streets Committee met on June 10th and June 17th. The sinkhole on Locust Lane that was mentioned in the last meeting has been filled temporarily with cold patch and is slated for a permanent fix at a later date. Another thing that was mentioned before was setting up a regular schedule for street sweeping, and that has begun this past week. I don't exactly know what the schedule is, but there is one, and it's happening. An agreement was signed with, is it Buckhorn? Is that how you say it?
Buckhorn Horn.
Buckhorn, for the Big Spring cover and for the traffic study at that intersection. Pannoni quoted a cost of $14,500 to address the stormwater drainage issue at Zion Road and Parkwood Drive, and has confirmed that PennDOT considers this to be an allowable expense under the highway aid funds.
So do we need a motion to go forward with that?
Well, you would, right now, I think the committee's holding off till we determine, we know where we can use the funds, but we have to see if we have enough funds for it.
Okay, so that decision will be made at another committee meeting.
North Central Site Services attended our June 17th meeting to tell us about grant funding that they have available that would provide a 50% match for any improvements that we do that benefit the visually impaired. We may be able to use this funding to help pay for the new curb cuts that will be part of the Diamond project. And in the future, we may consider using this funding to add other improvements, such as adding auditory signals at traffic lights around town.
So, and related to that, during that meeting, they also discussed the possibility of ADA playground equipment. So that's going to be discussed in the next Parks and Rec Committee meeting.
So the I guess the big news was that we received 2 quotes for the curbing and delineators for the bump outs and other traffic calming measures at the Diamond. They were in your packet. The first one was for $65,401, and the other was for $29,900. After much discussion, the committee recommends the less expensive of the 2 options, in spite of concerns about durability, because we are considering this as a temporary measure, and it was said that maybe an additional 10% of materials would be ordered in case pieces need to be repaired or replaced because of plowing snow and that kind of thing. The other downside to the cheaper option, besides the fear about durability, is that the materials are back ordered for 12 weeks, so it will be about another 3 months before we can see movement on that front. Right now, the temporary barricades from the crews were left up in the areas down there, blocking those parking areas. To kind of start getting people to know that something's up and kind of get used to that idea. And the crosswalks in the Diamond area that are not going to be either moved, like the one down by the YMCA is going to be moved, or one is going to be moved down to the YMCA, and then the one that's at an angle there by Converse is going to be straightened. But the ones that are not going to be adjusted they're going to go ahead and paint those in the near future, because there were complaints that why haven't those yet been painted? So we're going to paint the ones that that can be painted, that aren't going to be changed. So right now, the motion I have is for the council to accept the cheaper of those 2 bids that we were given for the delineators and curbs and all that. that stuff.
So Mary is making a motion to accept the road safe traffic systems quote for a total of $32,890.30, which includes that 10% increase for the delineators and at the Diamond. Who's-
Second.
Johnson.
I'll third it.
Discussion?
I just want to clarify where the blockade is still set up is in the parking spaces on the Diamond, on the right side by the Face Center and State Burger, and then on Rod Beard's side. Those are all blocked off now. And it's like Mary said, to kind of give drivers, get used to that area as being more of a people area.
More visibility,
Yeah.
more visibility for drivers.
And they will remain there until the permanent
Delineate.
fixtures
Right.
are installed.
Yes.
Right.
I have two things further. Number one, we will paint all the crosswalks in that area, but we're only going to do the parallel lines. We're not going to do the blocks at this point. Because of the time frame that it's going to take, there's a 12-week lead time before we're going to receive the delineators and temporary curbing. By the time 12 weeks comes up, we're looking at the fall, so we'll just paint over them black, and it'll give us time to do the curb cuts, and then we'll straighten the lines out at that point regarding the YMCA and there between Confer's Jewelers and the Brownstone Building, Beard Law, where we're gonna straighten it. But in the meantime, we are gonna paint all the crosswalks.
So are you doing piano keys on the ones that are remaining?
No, just,
Just straight.
they'll all be parallel
line. We
lines at this
discussed that in
point.
the meeting.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry, the 10% was, Matt already included 10% in he asked them for 10% additional in supplies in case anything breaks. So the cost is actually $29,927.
Is that original?
We did not understand that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's my mistake.
Okay, so it's a reduced amount. Yes, John?
Just as a point of information, was the more expensive units, were they available any sooner?
Yeah, they
This
would be
week.
available
Immediately.
Immediately.
which
Oh.
was would have been nice.
Okay.
And we talked about, whether if we got the more durable ones, would we use them again? Because that would be an option, but we didn't have a plan to use them again, so.
Okay.
But these are about half the price of the more expensive.
Right, right.
And with the additional 10% for failure or damage, we thought it would be covered.
Right. Yeah,
I think it's a better option.
There was just there was
Can you
sort of
speak up a little bit?
there was a push to have,
Get it
a-
done.
yeah, get it done.
Yeah.
Well,
So, yeah.
But that's why,
That-
but that's why we're leaving the barriers in place.
Okay.
It gives some adjustment time, and we'll see what sort of feedback we get. And we have 12 weeks to cancel the order if we get a deluge of, you can't do that from borough residents, so.
I like the philosophy. We've confirmed that we can cancel.
I would imagine you can, but no, it's not confirmed.
I'd say confirm that, but I like the idea.
So anyhow,
Well,
Yeah.
I think the thing is, we're still able to go ahead and get, get these crosswalks
yeah.
relocated
Right.
and the cutouts in, and that can all be going on.
Yep.
And I think that's a good thing. I think that's gonna help quite a bit in that one area.
and I don't know if it's the time to mention it, Dawn, that you did meet with some
I
business.
got a report on that.
Oh, okay,
I'm
sorry.
just waiting for this discussion.
Okay.
We have to
That was
time
gonna be
to-
part of this discussion,
No.
to reinforce what we've done.
We will,
John,
but
to answer
not
your
during this
question.
month.
Okay.
Invoices are paid
I'll
within
call the
30
question,
days.
Madam
so-
President.
Okay. So,
Oh, okay. So 30 days after we get it from them.
30 days after we order.
so 30 days from now.
Oh,
If we order tomorrow, within 30 days, we have to pay for them, so there really isn't, I mean, once you pay for them,
They're
they're
ours.
ooh. So they're going to, oh, okay, okay.
Any other discussion?
No.
Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
And then, the, change order request, is that something you can talk about, Don?
Yes, wouldn't you know, I just, I had it laying out here.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah. The paving list that we have with Geo Hall Baker, we did do a change order on that. We, just for everyone to know, we did delete McAllister Street, both the milling and paving. Most of the other changes were just revising, or either revising or deleting the milling. But go back to McAllister so the people that live over there know why. We still have about a good 300 feet of sewer and water line replacement that needs to take place. So Matt felt that this wasn't the best time to go ahead and begin to spend the money to pave. We got to get back in there, finish the job, and then put it back on the list at a later date. And we added Church Street milling and Church Street binder to the project. That was a problem, I think everyone knows, right up here off of Spring Street. We had, Church was blocked off there for a period of time because of the road heaving up. But you all see in the packet what the changes are. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to contact us.
Do we need to make a motion for this change, or is this just information?
No, this is for your information, because council initially made the motion for Matt to have, our public works superintendent to be able to work with Geo for the best possible outcome.
Okay, thank you. Keep going. Mary, that's it?
Oh, yeah, the only other thing was, you had mentioned wanting to include something about sidewalk repairs, but I wasn't really clear if, you said that sidewalk repairs were happening. I wasn't sure if that was that the borough was doing sidewalk repairs, or that the people who got the letters that we talked about in the last one were doing their sidewalk repairs, or?
I think we just mentioned, and you see in, Mr. Brooks is here, our code enforcement officer, and he's been working, getting letters out regarding sidewalks. People are repairing their sidewalks, and most of the letters for this year have been already sent.
Could I ask Harry a question?
Now's the time.
Harry, you have to go up to the... So I had a call last week from a neighbor of one of the people that you sent a letter out to. And he asked, how do you know which blocks were supposed to be repaired and which ones were not? How did you handle that?
The letter indicates that the part of the sidewalk that needs repaired has an orange paint dot on it. And so if they had, say, a missing piece of sidewalk, I actually put an orange dot on both sides of it so they could clearly see what needed to be repaired. But if that person would call me, I'd be glad to meet them and point it out to them.
This particular person wanted to know why half of their shared driveway had orange dots and the other half didn't. So, and I said I couldn't answer that question. So.
Without, I sent out 69 letters.
Okay.
So I can't recall every single one of them. So
Yeah.
if that person would want to meet me,
Yeah.
I'd be glad to meet them.
Yeah, that's what I suggested, but I just thought so for the public's knowledge that that was how they knew which ones were being repaired. So if a neighbor was wondering what the orange dots meant, that's what they mean.
That's exactly, and the letter states that. It clearly states that the places that need repaired are marked with orange paint dots.
Okay. Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Okay, so I got something for streets. It's a follow-up. Dawn and I were requested to speak with State Burger, the Faith Center, and Rodney Beard as to the Diamond area and what was going to happen down there. And the main thing was to talk about those parking spaces, the 4 spaces near Rodney Beard's office and the 3 parking spaces near the Faith Center and State Burger. We informed each party of the proposed changes that we're making at the Diamond to help create a safety area for pedestrians. Along with the traffic calming efforts of the project, it had been suggested that the parking stalls at those locations mentioned would remain closed after the cruise is finished over the weekend. So the purpose of the parking stall closure at this time is to get drivers used to the space no longer being available as we move forward with plans to put the traffic calming measures in place. We're currently waiting for the approved permit from PennDOT. I didn't hear that it came in. So that's one step closer. Dawn and I, in speaking with all three business, Rodney wasn't in his office, but Dawn had contacted him over a phone while we were waiting to speak with somebody else. But all three entities are very happy with what we're doing. They have no problem with losing those spaces. State Burger was going to stop using curbside delivery. But we did mention to them, there's going to be one available to the end of the year, so and it may move if somebody, I said, you don't do takeout, right? He goes, yeah. I said, well, then somebody could use that for the takeout. At least left it on the table for them. But yeah, it was pretty positive conversations. As far as with the Faith Center, we also talked about the donation drop-offs outside their business hours. They had several ideas, a conveyor belt in the back off of Cherry Lane, and bringing items in that way. They're going to help with signage. They're going to put their signs out that no deliveries during outside of business hours, but they still want to put their bin out because they know people are going to show up. And if nothing's there, it's just going to lay on the ground. So they're in a catch-22. So the borough then also, the discussion we had was the borough would put a sign out as far as the fine. They didn't want to be the bad guy delivering the fine, but I don't know if that went out or not, Dawn. Too soon?
No, as a matter of fact, this is the one thing, I think there's still some more work. We need to work closely with them. And with me, I mean, I'm leaving tomorrow here for a week or so, but at some point here, we got to get back together and really sit down with them maybe collectively and try to go over everything that we talked about with Donna and what they're willing. I mean, they're definitely willing to work with us, but we have to work some things out that probably wouldn't even hurt if we had some enforcement folks with us, because it's going to take some monitoring initially, especially on weekends.
Well, they had the bin out this weekend, and I should have stopped and taken photos because the bin was full and the doorway was full.
Yeah,
There was toys and
they bring
just junk.
They bring people in. They were telling us that they bring people in every weekend to do it, to take it in and dump it, but it comes back out. If they wouldn't have had been there, Doug, they just told us that it would be sitting there on the ground.
Well, then that's an enforcement issue. And it
But
needs to be.
over, like, when they were closed for COVID, they had very clear signs saying, do not leave your donations here, and people were not,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
Cool.
I think especially if there is a way to have a bin at the rear loading or whatever, I think that, I don't think that people want to just, that's what they do. I mean, I've done it too. You show up, you put your stuff in the bin, you can do it at the dark of night, you don't have to talk to a single person, it's great, but, I mean, if there's a sign there that says don't do it, and if there's not a bin there, I think that most people will abide by that. I mean, maybe
I agree. I think putting the bin there only encourages.
because
And
the
we said the
bin
same
there
thing.
means that it's
We had that
okay.
conversation.
So if you show up with the stuff and the bin is full, well then maybe you put it beside
Right,
the bin, or,
right.
and so, yeah, I think that the bin, they say it solves the problem, but I think that it invites the problem.
Not sure from their perspective, they weren't saying that it solves the problem. It's that their situation is they have volunteers. So think of yourself, if you're supervising a volunteer and you tell a volunteer, well, go out there and pick up that pile of stuff on the ground. I mean, the volunteer doesn't want to go out and you know, and
Okay.
15 times picking up stuff,
Then-
that could be put in a bin where they wheel it in and then they unload it.
Let's
And I
make
think
it
from their
consistent throughout the
situation.
borough then, Dawn. Let's make it consistent throughout the borough.
Uh,
If they can do it, then you can
Doug,
do it
I'm
down
not,
at-
I'm not saying, what I'm trying to say is, they're willing to work to fix the problem. They
Great.
wanna fix it.
Well, we should have fixed it 2 years ago. I mean, we've dealt with this, sorry about this, but we've dealt with this long enough. You go through the town afternoon on Saturday, and Sunday morning is piled full of stuff. And it's right in the center of our town. And it should not be. Just shouldn't be. So if they want to get angry at me for saying this, or wanting to enforce it, that's fine, I can take it. But we're trying to
Just
present the
remember,
town.
we spoke to them on Friday, and they just hired, I think, a new person. And they're looking at possibly adding another time to come in and gather things in.
I'm fine with that, but this isn't something new, is my point. And we're finally, as a council, addressing it. And we've talked about this for over 2 years. So it's time that we start acting. It's just like enforcing the no fishing along the stream.
Oh, I agree.
That's not.
Well, I'm saying there's things that Chief Weaver will sit there and say his police officers have been up there. They've told them this is how you have to do it before they can levy a fine. So all I'm saying, Doug, is we're getting
Sure.
closer. We just got to work towards how we can get it to where it can be enforced. Then we have to turn it over to the police department to enforce it.
I'm fine with that, but I still think, I think Mary agrees that putting a bin there only encourages more drop-offs. That's my opinion.
It would probably help if they had signs that drop offs in the back and put the bin
Well,
back
they're
there.
supposed,
Yeah, right.
they're posting signs about drop-offs during business hours only. That was
Then
a
why
sign they
put
were
the
gonna
bin there?
post. Just because they know somebody's gonna come and put, I'll walk down there tomorrow and tell them, let's try without the bin. And then you can drive down there and take pictures of it.
Be happy to do that.
I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, you can't, we need
Yeah,
to work
yeah.
with them.
So can we move on now?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anything else, Mary?
Nothing?
Anything else for streets?
Yes. We have contractors coming into town, not getting permits, and are closing streets. Cherry Lane was closed from Ridge Street for about a week. All it was a ladder and a man lift that blocked the street. There were no signs. I called down the borough Monday morning, and then they did bring a sign up and close the street on Badger Lane instead of people having to drive all the way down, turn around, and come all the way back up. And then a few days after that, just on the other side of, just above the Undines and behind, I think the lawyer's office, they were putting a new roof there. There they just had yellow tape and an extension ladder, and that was all that blocked the street. So, and at night, I don't know how anybody did not run into that. They told us when Pat and I walked up there on Friday, or you were talking to Rodney, I believe, they said, well, somebody from the borough stopped and said it was, everything looked great. And we know that that wasn't right. And I did talk to the chief, we talked to one of his officers, but never any signage was put up there to show that that road was closed. And to me, and none of them were confirmed to have permits. So I don't know how you're gonna manage that, but somebody has to get out in the back. But I just saw another contractor, and it's mostly Amish, but I just saw another one on Bishop Street, looking around, and I'm thinking, oh, there's another roof. And, it's kind of out of control at this point.
So, Don, do you have a recommendation?
Normally, they go to the police department when they want to close a road. I mean, we don't have a
I
permit.
usually, I assume that when these contractors are applying, or they'll call me and say, I have a roof, I might need to block Logan Street for a couple hours. if they need to put scaffolding up or lifts, I'll make sure that they do everything safe. They put the scaffolding down at night. If it's on a sidewalk, and I only talked to one person 2 weeks ago. It was on Bishop Street. He was making, where they had a lift, they were doing a roof, and they needed to have the scaffolding there and block the sidewalk. You have to make a safe sidewalk out around, put cones out, told them how to do it, and then finally I said, you know, you have to, if you're blocking a state highway or any part of it, you have to get your permit from the state. So usually anything that has to do with blocking a roadway, I say you got to go through council for a amount of time. I didn't know that there was a permit process for local streets for a half a day or an hour or two.
If there's not, maybe there should be.
We can work on
Is
that.
that something for streets to?
I would agree.
But I know that the, not to shuffle anything off, I know that the superintendent or Matt would know that there's certain regulations that they went to class for if you're, you know, where you have to have your road closed sign, how many flaggers you have to have on the ground. There's times when, you know, Verizon will be working on Howard Street and they'll have part of the lane closed down. They won't have anybody out flagging whatsoever. So I don't know what those regulations are. as
Yeah,
far as-
we do it for when we go out and work on a
It's the
street.
same regulation,
Yeah,
that's the same
but-
regulation.
But we
that
don't
they
do
have
it
to abide
for someone, you know, that's just some contractor, that's
Right.
their
Yeah.
responsibility.
Right.
No, he's not saying that.
The regulations, though,
Yeah.
they have a book of street closure regs.
Right. Yeah, I would just turn it over to streets to talk about the process.
And maybe have Matt come in and
Because
tell us.
we don't know, I mean, we don't even, I mean, unless someone were to call us, we didn't know, I didn't know the road was blocked until Randy said something.
Yeah, I didn't know that road was blocked either.
It was blocked again today.
Yeah. We were getting ready for the cruise.
But
actually.
the folks that were there were done Friday by 4, but then they came back today. I don't know if they're done today or not.
I mean, in this instance, they had no choice, the way just from my viewpoint, I mean, they had to block the road because there's nowhere other way to get to that, fix that roof. But they just didn't block the road off and put the proper signage up and those types of things. That was the issue.
And we had the same issues with, you know, businesses downtown where tractor trailers will come in and, you know, they'll sit right in front of a business for 20, 25 minutes. And not just downtown, but, you know, around the town, and they'll block traffic. You have
Yeah,
to
they
actually
double park.
Go out around them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
that never happened.
but they don't, how else are they going to unload?
Well, anytime we close streets downtown, 911 gets notified, you know, and all that stuff, but none of that's happening with these contractors.
Yeah, that's the first thing I tell them, they have to call 911.
So,
Emergency vehicles.
Sean, at the Streets Committee meeting, could you come in and give
Sure.
us that background information so that we can help make recommendations? Because I don't
Right,
think,
I really didn't know until I just talked to Harry that we even had a road closure permitting for local roads.
so between the two of you, maybe we can figure out what we
Right.
need to do and how to let the public know. So, and the contractors specifically, because homeowners need to know that this is, that this is an issue and they
In
need to
most
talk to.
issues, you know, in all circumstances like this, we try to, you know, the last resort is to block the street.
Right.
Sometimes that's the only way to do it. So, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Another thing for your plate, Mary.
What was that?
Another thing for your plate.
Yes, I got it.
Anything else? Okay, great. Moving on then. Energy and environment, Mike.
Hopefully it's a nice quick one. Our emergency management plan and our solar plan have been completed. We got the final drafts from our engineers. Anybody interested in getting a copy can contact Alyssa Doherty at the borough office. And we are setting up a fixed committee
Sorry, been done, I think.
time, and it's tentatively the last Thursday
Of each
of the month. Hopefully that'll work out. We can adjust accordingly.
I thought that she sent out that doodle that
Yeah.
was requested, and that meeting is scheduled for 6:30 at 4 PM.
That's the first one, yes.
Yeah,
So it's
the
last-
that Thursday is June 30th at 4.
And then after that, it's every
Okay.
Last Thursday every month.
All right.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay.
I have a question. Mike, at some point, is on the energy management plan, is council gonna have any voting to do on that?
That's a good question. I don't know if.
Because otherwise, why
we've already-
didn't this just go out to all council members?
I believe it's in the packet.
No, it's not in the
Oh,
packet. It
then
didn't
that-
go out in the packet because it's like 80 pages long. And
Yeah, I didn't
that's
wanna-
why they said, Don and Ralph suggested we hold off on sending it out for right now.
I have it in my folder for the meeting, but I didn't realize it wasn't in the packet.
But maybe we can send it out for the next one.
If you want the report sent out, we'll send it out tomorrow to everybody. I'll
So
get-
John said that he'll get Alyssa to send it out to everybody tomorrow.
Is this the same one we've been working on, or is this a different one?
This isn't the climate action plan, this was the energy management plan by the consultant
Okay.
and a solar plan.
Okay, so then there will be some need for everybody to see this.
Eventually.
They're final reports, so
Yes.
they're just there for your information at this
Okay.
point.
All right.
And then, the meeting that's scheduled is on a Wednesday, June 30th, I have as a Wednesday, so.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think the
yeah.
first one is not on the same
I'm sorry, I
schedule.
didn't mean Thursday, the last Wednesday of the month.
Whatever. So you'll get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else for energy environment?
That's all I have.
Okay. Moving on to Office of Community Affairs. Don finished taking his note, and then we'll move from there.
Okay, so, first of all, there's some meeting minutes from the Planning Commission meeting that was held in June in your packet. Anyone have any questions regarding the Planning Commission?
We need a motion to approve the lot consolidation plans for the Lukovich property on East Beaver Street, contingent upon them incorporating any county planning comments.
Mouthful. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Prendergast and Clayton. Any comments, questions?
What's the heading for that? I'm trying to find that item.
It's under the Planning Commission,
It's OCA.
OCA.
Oh, okay.
That, the Lukovich property, about 15 years ago, had two properties, one property that was split into two. Now they're coming back and taking half of that original split and want to consolidate it back in with another property that Mr. Lukovich owns next to it. So they have a bigger property to do some development on. It is a vacant piece of land right now.
It's on page 3.
Page 3? Okay, thanks. Page 2.
So,
Okay.
Are you looking for comments?
Yes, comments
Or
or,
any of the neighbors, had we gotten any objections from neighbors?
not that I know
No,
of.
I call the question.
Did we submit, was it posted for a zoning change? And did we submit, or did we solicit comment from the neighbors?
I don't know.
Hard to recommend you make,
It's not hard.
planning and zoning, sorry.
They recommended to
But these,
accept it.
yeah. So,
Well, let's just accept it.
and, So I can't answer that question, but if there are no other questions, then we can move for a vote, or unless you feel you don't have enough information, we can table it to the next one.
I call the question.
Okay. There's anyone opposed to calling the question? Seeing none, all in favor then, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, so moved.
Okay, the HARB now, their certificates of appropriateness, I'll give you all the ones that you can approve maybe in one lot, and then we'll take the one that's at issue here. So, HARB is recommending approval of 134 West Pike Street, replacement of 3 interior windows, 325 West High Street, My Cafe Buzz, a deck addition, 325 West High Street, replacement of window, an 8-foot wide window with doors, 338 East Lynn Street, paint color change recommended for approval. Those 4 projects HARB is recommending for approval.
Do I have a motion for
I'll
those
make
four?
that motion, Brackville.
I'll second the motion,
Brackville
Johnson.
and Johnson. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Okay, and then,
Do the administrative approvals.
yeah, a couple administrative approvals. There was an administrative approval for 445 East Curtin Street, various exterior finishes. Gina approved, and then she also administratively approved 125 North Spring Street, the Moose Lodge. It's just a repair of roof above the entryway. The one issue, we have some folks here in the audience tonight for 325 West High Street, My Cafe Buzz. They were recommending a roof put on the building, and HARB made the recommendation for denying this request. I guess at this point, do you want to?
Yeah. So, Mr. Lingle, do you want to come up and,
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for their time this evening or whatever. And my wife and I are first-time building owners in Bellefonte, so we're going through the learning curve of knowing what to do and what we can't do. At this point, I'd like to thank Ralph Stewart and Don Halderman for giving us a lot of direction and stuff as far as what we can do or whatever, and it's been extremely helpful. As everybody knows, the COVID has been a huge impact on the food industry, and My Cafe Buzz is certainly affected drastically by that. Basically by the limitation of the seating capacity inside. Normally, capacity is up to 32 people, but because of COVID, we're probably at 10. So the deck is a huge part of my daughter's business and stuff. So, and unfortunately, when you have thunderstorms go through like we had Saturday and today and stuff, it's very detrimental to the business and stuff to sustain the type of business that we have to make it appropriate. Again, we were able to talk to Claudia Albertson, and she has done quite a few projects in town that HARB has approved and stuff, so we were trying to go that route as far as making sure that we were on the same page with everybody and we would get approval. Claudia then works very closely with Jim California, who's with Providence Engineering or whatever. And so he has been working with us very closely on the project. The roof expansion that we would like to do is probably about $4,000. What HARB has come back to us, unfortunately, it's going to cost somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000, which is going to probably throw the project out, and it's going to create quite a hardship for us. At this point, I'd kind of like to let Jim go over some things and kind of show you what we had planned and what we were trying to consider on the thing.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Like Larry said, I have worked on projects in Bellefonte before. I have experience with historic projects here, the Cadillac building. I'm the structural engineer in the Gamble Mill right now. And, what's the other one? Oh, the Freight House move a few years ago. That was a fun project. Okay, so I've brought some visual aids. In case you're not familiar with. Oh, great, thank you. So my Cafe Buzz project, I just included some historical pictures here of the building we're talking about. I'm sure you all know it's this little building here. It's kind of a sad picture with the Bush House in the background there, but it was the little Cafe Buzz building. It was a store. It's called the Little Store in this picture. And if you don't know, this building doesn't really sit directly on the ground. It sits above the raceway on piers, and it's on this side, and then on the outside it sits on the wall of the raceway. Here's another historic picture of it with. I think I can zoom in here. So sort of a fun place, but just want to point out not everything historical is very attractive. There's a Coca-Cola sign painted right on the side of the building there. So let me get to the meat of the issue here. I'm having trouble with this trackpad here. So the deck right now, here's the outline of the building, the footprint as it sits right now. And we're showing the egress lines there, which kind of complicated, but the deck right now is right here. It stops, that's the extent of the deck. And we're proposing to add this much deck above the raceway. And that's been approved, and we're grateful for that. The deck itself has been approved. What Heather and Larry want to do here, though, is add a partial roof, not over the whole deck, over part of the deck. This is the roof right here. The rest of this deck would remain open for now, but there's always a possibility that it could be covered in the future. Now we showed a very simple shed type roof, one side it's a one directional slope roof. So if you look at the front of the building, you can see this shed roof coming off the existing building. A few reasons why we chose this methodology of roof is, number one, it's simple and straightforward, and it's an efficient and inexpensive way to build the roof, and it's a typical roof construction. There's nothing special about that. It has the same simple lines as the rest of the building. There's a shed roof in front. There's a little shed roof on the side. Sorry, I'm just having trouble with the trackpad here. How do I get this to slide over? Okay. But structurally, from a structural engineering standpoint, okay, like I said, this wall right here bears on piers that go down into the raceway. It's not sitting on the ground. And we wanted to distribute this load out. We want to have these rafters spaced out, so we're bearing on the wall studs and then spreading that load out down to the piers. Simple and keeping the load uniform. Now Harb has a different idea. Can't quite see it here, but there's a ridge line here, and have the roof slope both directions, like as a gable. Let's see it better here. You want to do a gable end, and then here's the front view, this gable roof. Now at first blush you think, oh well, that looks good, but here's the thing. First of all, this is a big structural problem right here. By turning this thing 90 degrees, we've now added two concentrated loads right at the ends of this roof. which, so now we would have to create posts in here. Either we have to open up the wall, open up the finishes, build posts in there, or if to run posts alongside the building here, and then make sure we're down into the raceway with, either we're on a pier that's there if we're lucky, if it's right where it needs to be, which is not necessarily true, or we have to build another pier down and extend the pier some way to grab that load. So those loads would be, if you look at the front, those loads, one would be here and one would be here at the ends of the roof, rather than have that nice distributed load across with the shed roof type. Also what it does, I mean, looking at this, it seems there's some aesthetics to that, but if and when you ever want to expand this roof, I mean, I'm not sure how you even do that. I don't know how you continue this kind of gable end over the rest of the deck here. So you kind of limit yourself on the future expansion of that roof. Also, this really isn't, I mean, I think the idea is that this is more, it's historic craftsmanship, et cetera. This really isn't a true representation of this building. We don't want to create something that, sort of an inauthentic history of this building by creating a roof that really doesn't undo that. Things moving there, I don't want them to be moving, but we're creating this sort of, we're trying to make this look like it was there all along, but it wasn't. It wasn't there all along. It's not an authentic representation of that building. So that's where we are. We'd like you to consider this roof as opposed to the HARB recommended roof. It's just unnecessarily complicated to go with this for a simple porch roof. And Larry already mentioned, the business considerations, the 2021, COVID issue, and the fact that so many people now look for open air places to eat. The roof is important for their business. And it's, it'll be a landmark. I mean, the next photo of this building, the building photo taken in 2021 is going to show that roof, and there'll be a story behind that as to what that roof is for. It's a simple shed roof, and the reason it was added was because of, through the COVID, the pandemic of 2020 and 2021. So it's part of the history of the building going forward. It's a natural evolution. I mean, even those original pictures I showed, there was no deck here. I mean, the deck has been added over the years, so now it's a logical thing to do is add a roof over the deck at this time. Good.
Shingles or the.
One thing we can do, we're showing metal. One time we had a very shallow slope to this thing. We're showing a metal roof here. We're okay with going to shingles if that would make it more desirable. We could make this shingles. It's steep enough now that the shingles could work there. At one time it was less than 3 and 12, but now it's at 3 and 12. So if that would make it easier to approve this, we can make it shingles.
Rain?
Questions?
Yes. You want to go first?
Yeah, so on did you propose that to? Pardon me? HARB, did you propose shingles to HARB? Or is this after the fact?
No, this is after the fact.
Okay.
Right.
So then that'll match the existing shingles then?
We can do that, yes. Or at least get very close anyway.
I sat in on that meeting, didn't make any comments, I just listened, and I think what they were saying is not quite what you've presented this evening. This idea of this hitch roof, was a suggestion from one of the members of HARB. She said it's a possibility. She wasn't saying that you had to do this. She was saying that what I heard them say was that the material you were using for the roof was a barn roof. It's the rippled metal roof that we've had the controversy around throughout town. And they said that, and what I heard them say was you could do the standing seam roof. If you wanted to match the roof to the shingles that are currently on, you could do that. Or you could do this third one. But the roof that you were presenting, they were recommending for denial at that point. It's not that they were saying you had to do this hip roof.
Yeah, because I thought Gina sent me a sketch where she kind of drew something like this
That was
as well.
done by one of the committee members saying, this is just an idea.
Yeah,
It's not that this is what we're telling you you need to do.
That's wrong.
So
Yeah.
you're confusing me. So they'll accept the shed dormer or
That was
it's just the
one,
roofing material that they were rejecting?
Yes.
Well, that's pretty easy.
yeah, so they're
let's get this
asking you
done.
to come back
Let them do
with
the shed
another.
roof. What kind of material do you want to use?
I would suggest a shingle to make it look the same, but other than that, even if
Yeah,
it was a standing
I
seam
still
on
think
the
we
roof.
should go back.
Well, I'd like to say,
Yeah.
I think everybody here has seen what they've done
Right.
with that building.
Oh, I love
And
it.
it's a jewel.
Yeah.
And I would trust that these folks will make the right decision to make that look better, or just, I mean, it looks gorgeous compared to what it was before they bought it.
It's beautiful. It's
So,
really-
if the issue is only the material and not the design of the roof, which causes the expense, then I would say we just go ahead and approve
Let
that.
the administration
Yeah,
approve
I'm
whatever
going
they're
to say
doing.
something. We have gone through this multiple times.
Yes, we have.
And
Every time we
each
talk
time
about a roof.
when we come to this issue, you as council have said we should do what HARB is recommending. Let's follow HARB's guidelines. What you're recommending this evening,
No, what I'm
let me
rec-
finish, is to have us, they asked them to go back and look and to come back for a second review. If you are
Right.
saying,
I'm
go
not saying
through, if you're saying that we should go ahead and give them a go-ahead to do whatever they want, then we are denying HARB their oversight.
Agreed.
That's right.
Agreed.
And we are.
So what I'm
My
saying,
suggestion would be to go back to Harvard and say, we'll use shingles and see if they improve it.
But why make them go the extra step?
It's gonna
We
be-
can approve it tonight if they want shingles.
I can
and we
assure you,
agree.
whatever you folks want,
There you go.
that's what we will do.
I'm just saying, do not take it out of Harb's hand.
Well,
Yeah.
and they must have misunderstood HARB, because I think they could have resolved this at the HARB meeting. They could have agreed to the
Yeah,
shingle
Heather-
or the standing
unfortunately,
seam.
unfortunately, they weren't there.
Heather
His
attended.
daughter was there, and she agreed to everything that they said. And this decision all occurred after that meeting.
So what does HARB want?
They want them to come back with another,
That's,
If
is
you,
that a month from now?
If you read Gina sent an
I
email
did
to
read it.
you all she was saying, and, that HARB had just requested that they come back with a couple different options, and it was more than likely it was gonna be approved.
So that's another month from now?
Well, there's a HARB meeting tomorrow morning.
yes.
Can you make that meeting?
It's on the agenda for tomorrow.
I would prefer not to. I mean, I'd prefer not to come back and try to spend all night See, drawing up a we bunch need to follow, I'm agreeing with Joanne here, that we need to follow the HARB guidelines. No, we don't. They're advisory. And that's what we're trying to do, Yeah. and all they did was refuse or.
Well, we can make
That's
the
really
decision
not, that's really
tonight.
not true, though. They did recommend going with a hip roof, though. A hip roof or a gable. I don't care what they recommended, that's a whole other story of how you can have an issue with HARB, and that's one of the things I have. Either, here's what you have approved, these are the approved materials, that's the line. You don't say, well, you can put a roof like this on. I don't think they're supposed to go there. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're supposed to go there. If you have a plan, and maybe, the roof, the metal roof attaching to where you're gonna attach it, wasn't gonna look good. That's one of the oldest buildings in Bellefonte. I guarantee you it's one of the oldest buildings in Bellefonte. So, to me, I would rather see it just shingled, just simply shingled to match what's there, and I think you're good to go.
Yeah.
So why can't we just give them that
Can't we just
directive?
approve that?
That's an easy fix. If you say shingles, that's what we'll do, Randy.
So what you need to do is, we'll have a vote to follow on this motion to deny. The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Gina wrote in her email that you are on the agenda under old business. And you or your daughter could come back and say, these are the materials that we think we're doing. We don't want to do the hipped roof. We want to do, as you call it, shed type, but we'll use these, whatever materials it is you want.
But we could approve it tonight without them having to come back to HARP. We've done it in the past.
I don't see the need if there's a meeting tomorrow morning, that hard hand.
Can we do
Yes, it's a
conditional
Zoom.
approval?
It's a Zoom meeting.
Can we do conditional, like administrative approval, like
We
we've done
can-
on other projects?
We can approve it, Melissa, like we've approved others, when, I mean.
I agree. That's why I'm saying conditional, because I don't want them to have to wait 2 more weeks.
I don't either.
So if
But
it's
the
just
meeting's tomorrow.
if it's a miscommunication between, I'm unclear, I'm reading Gina's email and I'm unclear on what she's trying to say. So if it's just a miscommunication between shed versus pitched, or metal roof versus shingle, if like we can approve a shingled roof, shed style, conditionally upon Harb's sign off, can we do that?
Yeah, I
Simple
think
as
that
that.
would be, you could do it conditionally, and then if Harb approves it tomorrow, it's already approved by council,
But
yes.
if not, then they
it's
still
a
have,
different-
then they have to come back to HARP.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't HARP approve it?
That's just it.
I say, I don't know what
They
they're
won't.
going to, like I said, all I did was listen at the last meeting.
If I can say, going forward, I will not approve Harb's suggestion to do a pitched roof if that's make or break for them. I do not think it's appropriate to go into a building to
No, I
do
don't
what they
either.
wanna do at the age of that building. So I think consensus for council might be, like, let's get this done. Not to override anybody, but let's find a middle ground to make it easy for everyone.
I agree, I think there was some miscommunication, and if you don't do it tonight, we can do it tonight on a conditional.
That's what I have to agree with Melissa.
Let's do it.
Why are we putting them through this? I mean, it was a miscommunication, and I think they didn't understand. If at the HARP meeting, your daughter would have said, sure, we'll put a shingle roof on it, we'll put a standing seam. I
And she
assume a
also
fair
said
warning
she did
hearing
the
is,
hip thing as
they would have
well,
approved
so-
it. So now I have to agree, this is a pretty simple project. I encourage any business in Bellefonte to do what you're doing. Like the mayor said, you made that building fantastic, and this is only improvement for the whole town. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me tonight. So
Can I
So-
make a motion to conditionally approve the shed-style roof with shingles, with with Harb's approval at their meeting tomorrow?
I'll second it.
Can you change one word and add matching shingle?
Matching shingle, yes, correct. I don't
As
wanna
close as they
kneecap
can match.
anybody,
Well,
but.
no, it's still match.
But
Right.
if with the
It's a
4th
good-
of July holiday, and I understand the daughter may have approved whatever, but until you see costs, like, that goes out the window, so, I don't wanna slow anyone down, summer is ticking.
Yeah, time matters.
It really does, and I appreciate your consideration for any of this. As you all know, it's been a tough year. The weather is super dependent on how we do with that
Larry,
business work.
would you have any problem jumping on the Zoom meeting in the morning?
I'm already scheduled to be on it.
You are?
Just in-
Okay.
Just in case, yeah.
Yeah, if I can get an invite to it or whatever,
But,
sure.
yeah, as long as your engineer could be there, I think that's
Sure.
probably the most important thing.
That's basically what I'm asking for. And I think they said that, you may have a discussion whether it should be standing seam or shingle, because you did want to do metal originally, right?
Yeah,
Personally,
yeah.
don't see if whichever one they might approve, they could go ahead with. So,
Whichever,
but if that's true,
just-
then someone have to make an amendment to say shingle or metal for that.
Oh, my
I just think the shingles will go.
I think the shingles would be
They
less
didn't like,
detrimental.
they didn't like the metal.
It was the ripple metal, it wasn't metal per se.
You know, I said,
I think Larry's saying they would do shingle, so
Okay.
that's
I have no
what
problem.
Okay,
I think Larry's saying.
so
that
we've
they
got
do
who,
everything.
Melissa made,
Melissa and Pendergast second. It was
Okay.
conditionally approved the shed style roof with matching shingles with Harb approval.
okay,
Well,
okay.
if we
Do
approve
we have
it,
a-
it's approved.
Do we have,
No?
any further discussion on this?
If we approve it, it's approved.
No,
No.
you're approving
Because
it
you're
conditionally
conditionally
approving
approving on
it
Harb's?
based on Harb's
you
approval
can
tomorrow.
you can make a counter
Hmm?
motion.
An addendum? or
No,
a-
you can make a motion, a substitute motion to say,
I want the motion that if we approve it tonight and they're agreeing to what the shingle to roof to match the existing as close as they can, just do it.
so,
So I'll make the motion.
so you're making, so Doug is making a substitute motion to,
An amendment.
to Al,
Amendment to the
to,
motion.
it's a
No.
substitute because it would not have any, what you're,
Then-
this is
Then
a.
we need to vote on the current motion.
No, under Robert's rules, he can make a substitute amendment saying, instead of doing conditional approval, he wants full approval of a shingle this evening. And that's what his substitute motion is. Is there a second to that? Seeing none, we'll move on with Melissa's.
It's fine. I made the attempt, that's all I can do.
Okay, don't do any further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of this conditional approval, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So approved.
You're almost there.
Almost.
We'll see, if it fails, come back, we'll listen again.
Yeah, if it failed, we will just go right hard.
Well, unfortunately, it's a stepping stone, so this is one step, but we still have to go through center region and everything else, so.
Yeah.
You know, as much as we'd like this process to go quicker because.
Time is money.
Yeah, absolutely, and right now, we're just barely staying afloat. So if we can't make money this summer, or my daughter can't, then the winter becomes extremely tough.
Agreed.
So it's, I mean, I understand the process takes a while, and I appreciate everybody's attention to it or whatever.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
the
coming in.
aesthetics are standing in the way of business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
We
we're
have the
moving
authority
on
to
to special committee reports.
We
did.
We have the nuisance
Yeah,
code.
because nobody has any
sorry.
balls.
Guys, time out. Nuisance codes report?
Anyone have any questions on the report that Harry put in the packet? Okay.
Okay, in that case, Carrie, do you have anything you want to say?
No, not with regard to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on then to special committee reports.
I just wanted to pass on to council that the Bellefonte Area Industrial Development Authority had a meeting the other week. The last couple meetings, we've been including the Bellefonte Historical Preservation Foundation. There's been a lot of discussion on trying to find some houses. Of course, as you know, that the authority has a couple $100,000 to look for a house and perhaps renovate something in the borough. So we combined with this, the Bellefonte Historic Preservation Foundation, determined a house we would like to renovate, and we've sent a letter to the owner, and we'll just wait to hear back from the owner as to whether or not they're willing to sell the property. Property that the Beta would like to look into is the property over on Thomas Street. It's an old, they call it the castle, but it's been empty for about 20 years, or maybe longer.
I would love
Yeah.
to see that rehabilitated.
Might have to have it exercised before. Probably ghost living in there.
Any
By now,
questions on the
yes.
beta meeting? Okay, then moving on to CATA, I think Deb and Randy attended that last public hearing. Can you all give a report?
No, it wasn't impressive. I didn't see anything that looked like they were gonna change their mind unless they come up with something soon. It was like, what did that start in August?
August 21st.
So, but, I mean, everybody was on the same page except CATA. Put it that way.
So I saw in the packet that Ralph had sent a letter to Luana at CATA asking for a meeting of them with us at a council meeting. If that has not been set up, I would like to have it set up so that we can express the concerns that we've heard in the community, that this is, we're not happy with their decision.
I told them at the beginning that somehow I got called on like the third person, and I said that a couple of years ago, we tried, we pushed back because of the increases, and you told us how important these two runs were, and now you're telling us they're not.
Yeah.
Because it suits them now. Yeah, so, and then I think Deb had some good points later on in the meeting. You have to tell them about that, I don't remember.
I did want to say that it's probably the
You have
best
to speak
attended,
up.
the best attended public hearing for CATA I've ever been to. I've been to others where it's just me and one other person. There were about 48 people signed on, and that included the CATA staff, a couple of board members, Randy and myself. The majority of people who spoke, and everybody signed up, was called on to give comments or ask questions, but to contribute. The majority of the speakers were from the Bellefonte Pleasant Gap area, and the concern pretty consistently was, how are we going to get back and forth to campus if the present proposal is to just drop people at the mall and expect them to hook up with the inbound HM bus. The proposal for a commuter express with an indeterminate point somewhere at this end of the world, maybe at Rudders, and then run a shuttle up and down 99 Stadium West, was got pretty much the same response of like, how is that actually going to work?
I mean, if somebody coming from Pleasant Gap drives to Rutgers, might as well just drive to Penn State.
Might as well just drive into town. CATA did give us some statistics. They are currently on CATA currently averaging 140 rides a day. So if you factor a 6-day work week, they're doing about 42,000 rides on CATA right now per year. And that's pretty substantial, and to me that's pretty close to what they were doing with the fixed route service before. My input was that they come up with some kind of hybrid system. Keep the CATA because it does serve community members who are not within walking distance of a fixed route stop. It actually covers a much broader area. But to reinstate at least commuter runs on the fixed route service that we had before to get people back and forth to campus. One of CATA's concerns is as they're doing that now, they're tying up an individual CATA vehicle for that run back and forth to campus, and that's not time efficient. If they were to reinstate the fixed route service, it would free up the CATA vehicles to stay in the Bellefonte Pleasant Gap area and to meet the increased demand. Their capital budget proposal for next year, it shows 8 new CATA vehicles. 3 of those will go to Bollesburg because they're bagging the Bollesburg run and instating CATA service in that area. The other 5 vehicles will be to replace the CATA vehicles that are currently being used here because we've run them into the ground, basically, which is a good thing. It means that the service is increasing. I would like to point out that there are 2 more CATA board meetings between now and the August 21st date when full service will go into effect and when whatever changes are made will also go into effect. June 28th and July 26th at 4 p.m. It will be a virtual meeting. Anybody can contact CATA to get a link to that. They're still taking comments. Anybody who has something you know, give them your 2 cents worth. They will at least listen. Whether or not they can implement the changes is hard to tell, but because there are still 2 board meetings, you know, Bellefonte Borough has a council to advise them, and CATA has a board of directors to advise them. And I think any changes that go through will have to be approved by the board.
So were members of the board on this last public?
There were at least 2 board members that I recognize. There may have been others who were new to the board that I didn't know. And Hugh Mose was also there. He's the former executive director of CATA, and he gave them an earful.
Good.
You know what it boils down to? Money. Federal subsidy, state subsidy.
Well, that's another point, that
That's
they're focusing the service on the high-density student housing, and those riders are paying with a reduced fare apartment pass. Everybody at this end of the world is kicking in full fare.
Yeah.
Want to increase us.
You know, so the underserved communities are getting less service, which is going in the wrong direction, because as people move to other forms of transportation, it's going to be very difficult to get people back on the bus.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, well,
Any questions? Okay, moving on, want to do a semi-Ralph Stewart?
No. Just let everybody know, Ralph put his monthly report in the packet for you all, and went over everything that he has on his plate.
I like the sample proposed process he had in there for holding the retreat. And just a question that I know you can't answer, but it's something to think about, is were we thinking of 2 days like in the sample?
Were we thinking what?
A 2-day retreat like it was in the sample?
I think that's why he put that there. That's up for you all to determine.
What's that?
Whether or not you want to do the retreat over a 2-day period.
I thought we canceled a meeting because.
We canceled the meeting, I believe, on the 16th.
Yes, we did.
We haven't scheduled the retreat date yet, but there'll be like a 3-week period that that would be our normal 3-week period between meeting a second meeting in August and first meeting in September. So I know that Joanne is coming back from Seattle on the 16th, so you'd have possibly perhaps the next week, which I think is around the 23rd, if you wanted to look at a date like that. But I believe by the next meeting, you should nail down a date.
So I guess my other question would be, if we canceled the 16th for no reason, other than Joanne being out of town.
No, that wasn't why it was canceled, though.
Well, I know why it was canceled, but we still don't have the dates. You know, that's why I'm questioning why it was even canceled, because it's not a firm date if we're having a retreat. If we're not having a retreat, how big's the agenda gonna be on the next meeting? We're gonna be here till midnight?
Well, my take was, Randy, and I could be wrong, but I thought, yeah, we're having a retreat, we just don't have the date yet.
But we still canceled a meeting. So what I'm asking is, with all, as busy as we've been, we're headed for another 10 o'clock here. What's that next agenda gonna look like?
Don doesn't know. He's not.
Well, based on what our meetings have been,
So are you
It's just a
suggesting-
comment.
Okay. Are you suggesting to have a meeting then?
if it's needed,
Would you like
yeah.
to make that motion to
Well,
reconsider
nobody
that?
knows if it's needed.
Can we look at, before we decide that, can we look at how many days? Because if we're talking about a 2-day retreat, I don't have that time. So I'm not doing a council meeting and a 2-day retreat. I just don't got it in me, emotionally or time-wise. So, can we make that decision after we figure out what this retreat's gonna look like?
I think maybe what we should do, and if you could leave a note for Ralph, to send out sort of like a doodle or whatever the thing is, a survey saying, do we do a 1-day or 2-day? What are possible dates? So that when we come back to the next meeting, on July 2nd, or whatever it is, July 6th, then we will have a better idea of what's going forward. Then, if Randy's,
Yes.
and that way we'll know what the consensus is of council saying. And remember, when you respond, don't respond all, just send them to Ralph.
If you could all, in his example, it listed questions to ask the council for the survey, so I think it would also help at that time to talk about what we want on the agenda, because it would be hard to say,
Yes.
we need one or two if we don't have an
Exactly.
idea of what we need to discuss.
Yes, exactly. Does that help?
So he'll send out a questionnaire regarding the retreat on how many days, what dates, and what you want to see on the agenda.
Yeah, and then maybe we can build out a plan.
Okay.
Great. Hopefully that will resolve this. Okay. Moving on to old business, we've already done the first item, so let's move to the second item.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve resolution number 062121-01. This is for Delta Development doing the RCAP revision for the Waterfront Property Associates, and that, if you could approve the resolution, then Joanne can sign the 2 letters that need to go into their packet for that.
I'll make the motion for approving resolution number 062121-01.
I'll second it.
Brackbill and Clayton? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Please say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved.
All right, and then there's a motion, we would need a motion to approve Chapter 425-3. This is the amendment to the Building Safety and Property Maintenance Code regarding the ornamental flowers in the borough right-of-way.
Motion. I'll second.
Eaton and Prendergast. Discussion? Okay. No one else does. I do. I said, I still believe that there is an alternative to fully denying decorative vegetative growth in the right-of-way. I think that this should be tabled for some community input on how we can deal with the safety issues raised by our nuisance property officer and and the community's desire to beautify our community. In addition, I think, and this was raised last week at the beta meeting, at the end of the meeting, this change would probably only affect those with sidewalks in front of their homes, since it is difficult for individuals to determine where on the grass they would need to stop planting decorative vegetative growth to meet the right-of-way requirements. So I personally would prefer tabling this and having some community input before we actually go to a vote on it, because this would not happen to make any changes till January based on the proposal at this point.
I appreciate the call to ask community input, but the people who are gonna be loudest about being in favor are the people who have ornamental vegetation. And people who are, put out by this ornamental vegetation aren't going to say anything, because they probably won't even know about it. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't have a curb. My whole thing is, I've seen people who have this ornamental decoration yell at people for just standing on their sidewalk, or like in the grass, which I think is inappropriate. You can't, I know that they take care of it, but they don't own it. I also don't think it's fair if someone is trying to get on the sidewalk and there's literally 50 feet of ornamental vegetation that they have to find a way and then still get yelled at. So I'm fine with trying to find somewhere in between.
That's what I want.
But I don't know how it's gonna get any better. Are you gonna try to find someone who's anti-vegetation to go against pro-vegetation? Because you're not gonna find that. So I don't think that's gonna be a solution.
Do we have a motion on the table?
Yes,
that we're
this is
having
just a,
discussion?
yes, yes.
Not every borough right-of-way has sidewalks.
Right.
That's what Joanne's
Yeah.
point was.
And not every place that has plantings up to the curb is an area where people would park. So if you've got that and no sidewalk to get to, why should you not have plantings there?
I think our nuisance code officer has some comments to make.
You mind?
Go ahead.
First of all, to your comment, I have, actually part of this on the side of my house, part of my property has sidewalk and part doesn't. People continue to walk through the grass instead of walking on the street because that would be their only other alternative, is to literally go onto the street. So, and I don't have anything planted there except grass. So, you know, that in itself isn't particularly an issue. And in the bigger scheme of things, we're really, by my own inventory, we're probably only talking about 12 to 15 properties in the entire borough that this is an issue with.
I have plantings along the side of my house and go up to the curb. There's a sidewalk that runs along the side of my house. It's not a common sidewalk. It doesn't, there's no way that somebody would get to it and use it and then exit my driveway. But I have plantings up along this, and it's at an intersection where nobody would be parking anyway.
And the side that you're referring to, is that an alley? Is that a street? Is it a?
No, there's a narrow sidewalk between the curb and my house, but it goes from my driveway around to the front of my house.
So, I mean, I probably would have to see that specifically, you know, and as we kind of discussed a little bit at the last meeting, you know, there is a little bit of wiggle room based upon the way the property sits and what's adjoining to it. The majority of the places where this really becomes an issue, and if you recall some of the photographs that I provided previously, really kind of address what Melissa was talking about, where they almost literally block the entire area of right-of-way where someone would traverse from the sidewalk onto the street to access their vehicle. Again, to speak specifically to your circumstance, I'd have to see it.
But I understand the conflict where you have to get from a common right-of-way to a common sidewalk.
And the issue too is that it's not their property. It doesn't belong to them. And, you know, and I don't want to, I'm all for vegetation and flowers, you know. I mean, Doug can tell you that I have lots of flowers and bushes on my property. But not everybody takes care of them all in the same way. You know, some people, I can show you plenty of places around town where people had good intentions and they planted things and they don't take care of them.
It's called maintenance-free landscaping.
Well, yeah.
Well, I think you have a point well taken, is it's not the property owner's property. It's the borough's property between the sidewalk and the curb. So.
And a strip of grass is fine. I don't know how that detracts from the beautification of the town.
Well, and generally, you know, the issue came up because, you know, the phraseology in the one ordinance is in conflict within that very ordinance, and it's in conflict with another ordinance that very clearly states it's public property, it's free access property, the citizens should have free access through it, and it should not be blocked. And then, but there's one sentence added to one of the two ordinances that allows ornamental vegetation. So this kind of started because I was looking for clarity as to how to enforce or not enforce.
How'd that work out for you?
Here we are.
We're going to find out here pretty soon.
Let's call the question.
I feel like this is not anything I'd ever thought of until, you know, until you brought it to the streets committee meeting, but I feel like it's your job to think about this, and this is, you're coming to us saying, you know, this is the issue, and this is what I think we should do about it, and I'm thinking that you're the guy who spends time thinking about this, and that we should we should back you up on this, is my feeling about this.
Well, I appreciate that.
We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, we do,
Yes, and we're discussing
having
it.
discussion, all right? And I'm
What's that?
Doug, call the motion.
Joanne wants the table. Was this already advertised?
It was
Yes.
averaged, yes, at the last meeting.
Let's call the
So,
question.
is there any other discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. So one no, Costi Basie. And I voted no because I heard from my constituents.
My only question is if I don't have sidewalks,
Yeah.
don't I have, is there any right, what's the limit on the right of way that the borough owns on my property? Pardon me?
That's the question.
What's the next item on the agenda?
The right of way up there, there's just no sidewalk in it.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
roadway,
what is the right of way when you don't have a sidewalk?
depends on the road.
It depends on the width of the road, so it could be 3 feet, 4 feet, you know. I mean, I have some.
That's the problem.
Right away that on my property, it's 6 feet.
Yeah.
What you
I
do is
want a
plant-
real estate tax reduction.
So-
I just lost
so-
property.
So.
No, you
that's-
never had it.
That was part of my objection. That's
Okay,
exactly what it is,
we
but let's
made the
move on.
ruling, we voted on
Yes,
it, can we
yes,
move on now?
Yes.
Please.
We move on to new business?
Yes, we need a motion to approve the Talleyrand Bandshell project proceeding as proposed in the work session, which would be for these folks to be able to go out and start requesting
Funds.
funds.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Prendergast,
second it.
Prendergast and Cleveland. Cleveland. Any discussion? Seeing none?
How come it's not done yet?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
And the last bit of new business that we have on the agenda is a motion to send a letter to our Senator Corman and State Representative Benninghoff in support of House Bill 1318.
This would allow for a quorum to include council members not present in the room. Do I have a motion and a second?
I'll second that.
Well, you're motioning it.
I'll make the motion.
Good idea.
Second?
I'll second that.
Brack bill? Discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved.
I have one more item,
Okay?
please. I'd just like to state that the 50th Annual Pennsylvania State Mayor's Convention will be happening in Pittsburgh on July 15th, 16th, and 17th. Bellefonte will be well represented, as Representative Benninghoff will be speaking about the radar bill in the House, and Council President Tostavesi will be speaking on climate. Right after Mr. Benninghoff.
Right. And we still don't know if it's in person or, I still don't know if I'm attending in person or virtually, because it depends on, I'm doing a joint presentation with Heidi Kunkel from the
Yeah.
Department of Environmental Protection. And it's up to them as to whether we're doing it in person or virtually.
Okay, well, anyhow,
But thank you.
you're welcome.
Any public comment?
No, I just wanted, I mentioned about fire exec committee meeting here Thursday night, we'd like to do that. I'm gonna make that request to you now.
I won't be here, Randy, so get a hold of someone in the office to get you a key to get in.
I have a key. I
Okay.
just need to make sure that
You'll be good Thursday night.
Any other comments for the good of the cause? Okay, Randy, one more.
I have a key to get in the door, but how do I get in up here?
You have to have a little black
I
knob.
don't have a little, up here, down.
Yeah, you need to stop in, and
I'll be in tomorrow, I'll bring the key back to the armory.
all right. So you found a key that works then?
They've been made.
Anything else? Any public comments? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Brack Bill? Who seconded?
Second.
And Prendergast.
Yep.
I don't see anybody opposing that, so we are adjourned at 9:53 PM.
Hallelujah, brother.